epic fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom with Talk. Breakfast Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. And on this Wednesday morning, my friends, the 4th of March, I'm going to do my best not to lose it because I have certain views. I'm going to try and keep it balanced. We want to hear from you throughout the show as ever. 0344 499 1000 is the only number you need. Get that voice note in nice and early. We will play them on, I promise you that. Also get your calls in on the same number. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Of course, there is still only one story in town, but it took a really interesting / completely embarrassing turn yesterday afternoon. I'll start by telling you this, and forgive me, I'm 60 years of age. This is my opinion. In Cyprus, there's an RAF base at Akrotiri, and 48 hours ago, a drone missile was fired from Iran, which stopped 800 yards from a British... There was a community of Brits. We spoke to a woman yesterday with a school. Now, we all talked yesterday about Article 5 would mean under this ridiculous NATO organisation that I think has been not the most impressive for many years, that if one is attacked, everybody is attacked. Now, I'm 60. I was born in Great Britain. We are an island. One would hope, one would convince oneself that you could defend yourself. Yesterday afternoon, the French, and I'm going to compliment them once, but I mean, they have been known as fence-sitters during their lives, reacting to what's going on in the world, sent a warship outside Cyprus to protect its people and presumably the Brits, right? That's the truth. Our Prime Minister refusing to get involved, not involved in the conversation, didn't even know it was going to happen in Iran, too busy placating a Muslim population that his success in future depends on, didn't send anybody. And it was only later on that he went, oh, right, well, OK, well, we'll send HMS Dragon. HMS Dragon will take weeks to get there and has got technical difficulties, and I'm really sorry at 6:05 to say that, but that just about sums up where we are as a country, and that just about sums up the man they call the British Prime Minister. Let's start with Donald Trump. Love him or loathe him. Did he lay into Keir Starmer yesterday? Couple of clips for you. He says there's not a great similarity between Starmer and Churchill. Have a watch.
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it, for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
That's not Winston Churchill. No, there is a statue, of course, of Winston Churchill. It's defaced. It was defaced last week by some nut jobs. So can you ever imagine a statue of Sir Keir Starmer? 0344 499 1000. Our Prime Minister is embarrassing us internationally. Then Trump thought, sod it, I'll go further. Have a listen.
But this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? They ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. The UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration is, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK, you have a terrible mayor of London, terrible, he's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back.
It's the most outspoken he's ever been about the United Kingdom, and I have to say I completely agree with absolutely everything that came out of his mouth. Love him or loathe him. Wouldn't it be great to have a Prime Minister or somebody in charge who could see it for what it is? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Before I bring in the legend that is Charlie Rowley, that's Donald Trump. 5,000 miles away, talking about the United Kingdom, our problems with energy, our problems with immigration, our problems with an impotent Prime Minister who's too busy cozying up to certain people who he worries might not like him to do what's right for this country. And this'll just about sum it up on why I'm so bloody angry this morning. Whilst Donald Trump is sat in the Oval Office being constructive about how this country could get off its backside, Keir Starmer's doing two things. First of all, he's created a TikTok. This is, the man wasn't even part of the... Have a watch. This is him. Pretend.
Emmanuel, Friedrich, really good to hear from you.
I think we are all concerned about what could happen within the next couple of hours or days.
We weren't involved, as we've made clear, in the strikes, although we are operating defensively in the region in relation to our assets and liabilities and allies.
I think we've completed nearly all of the regional calls, have we?
Prime Minister, how are you?
Hi. How are
These
you?
are very big decisions, and I want to hear your views, helping with the principles that we should apply as we go forward from here. We're not joining the offensive.
Yeah.
This is about collective self-defence of regional allies and British civilians are now at risk.
Good.
You are going to be put through to the office of the President of Cyprus.
We're deploying a Type 45 air defence destroyer to help defend Cyprus. Brilliant. Thanks, Nikos. Bye now. Bye.
So while the leader of the free world is in the Oval Office pointing out what's wrong with the world and with our country, our one's making a TikTok. And then I'm sorry, but I'm going to play this and then I'll get on with the show. All the people listening to this who think that this next sentence is unfair and wrong, I want you to watch this video. Many people believe that Starmer's politics, be it internationally or be it domestically right now, is based on two things. One is to placate a very, very angry parliamentary Labour Party who want to go to the left, who don't like him, and he has basically got to ask them if he can clean his teeth. The other criticism is that he is terrified of losing the Muslim vote to the Greens, as was shown in Gorton and Denton, and will do anything to placate that population. This was him last night in Westminster Hall addressing a group of Muslim people. Nothing against them, but just watch this and then remember what Donald Trump said. Have a listen. This is our Prime Minister.
But on Iran, I want to make clear the UK was not involved in the offensive strikes of the US and Israel, and that remains the case.
Good morning, Charlie Rowley. I don't think I've ever started a show so embarrassed, so angry and so annoyed. This man, it's in every newspaper. Front of the Sun, Jack Elsom and Harry Cole, ship happens. Front of the Mail, a Prime Minister who Trump mocks as no Churchill and a Navy that's stranded in port. The front of the Daily Telegraph, he is no Churchill. Front of the Times, he is no Churchill. We're having a crisis. It's unbelievable, man, isn't it?
It is. And I hadn't seen that TikTok video from the PM until you just showed it now. And I can't believe that someone is so desperate to tell us all, day after day, whether it's the UK through TikTok, whether it's through particular groups, that we are not involved. We did not get involved.
Proud of it.
Proud of it. Prime Minister, in Cyprus, UK defence base has been targeted.
Yes.
It has been attacked.
Yes.
And you are interested in trying to court your European socialist leaders, the French and the Germans. You're happy to court the Muslim community in Westminster Hall and say, we're not involved, don't worry. Do you think Iran, that launched those missiles, that funds the terror, that funds the hate, that oppress all of us, whether it's the Hezbollahs, the Houthis, Hamas, people that preach hate, people that want to go on and blow themselves up and attack us and our Western way of life, do you think that they are bothered about whether it's an offensive or defensive operation?
Do you think they're bothered about international law? I had Sir Richard Dalton on yesterday, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I could have spent 15 days talking to him, and he just sat there and said it's all about international law. And by the way, the French, who I've never been particularly supportive of, because they have been fence-sitters, they got a massive aircraft carrier to Cyprus before Starmer had finished, I don't know, recording his TikTok. It's embarrassing, man. Whether you agree with the concept of what Donald Trump and the Israelis have done or not, we are a laughingstock. And when people say to me, oh, the special relationship will go beyond two people, there are many who think it is irreparably damaged, certainly for the next 2 or 3 years.
Oh, totally. And look, you don't have to look too far, because I think it was the last G7 meeting last year where Operation Midnight Hammer, that was the first wave of strikes that the US took upon Iran to wipe out their nuclear bases. The Prime Minister did an interview with another station, and he was asked directly, do you think Donald Trump will actually attack Iran? He said, oh no, I'm pretty sure that won't happen. Well, 24 hours later, Iran were being bombed. Their nuclear enrichment facilities were being wiped out. Rightly so, because they pose a threat to the West. So the Prime Minister was totally caught on the hop there. He clearly wasn't in cahoots or conversation with the President. Wasn't included. And we've seen it again this time round. But the difference is that we knew that there was tension flaring up in the Middle East. We knew that people had been asked, particularly from US consulates and embassies, to leave the region.
Yeah.
You should see that coming. It doesn't matter whether you want to go around being part of the war, whether you want to be offensive, whether you wanted to join the strikes or not. As the Prime Minister of the UK, where we have UK air bases, defence bases in the Middle East, you can see a tension flaring up. You send what you can. Proactively. Even if it is just to defend. The fact that he's been sat on his hands, sitting probably around the cabinet table with Lord Hermer, Attorney General, and any other North Islington international set of lawyers that you can get your hands on, all discussing this, all looking through whatever magnitude of papers to justify not getting involved because they're scared of what happened in Iraq. I understand that. I understand the history there.
I understand that as well.
But that was over 20 years ago. We're talking about threats that the UK faces now.
If he's worried about his legacy, he shouldn't, because his legacy's finished. I mean, we've been through so much with Starmer, and there are many people, some who listen to this station, who say you always have it in for Starmer. We've talked about, we started with the old age pensioners, the farmers, the waspy women, the U-turns, 15 of them. But it comes to something when Donald Trump can sit in the Oval Office and talk about the two things that are destroying this country. We'll get into Rachel Reeves and her apparent blindness as to what's going on later, but the truth is this country financially is on its arse and it's got no money, when it has a perfectly easy way of paying that money back by drilling. I mean, it's quite ludicrous. This whole net zero rubbish, bills have gone up. We're now importing it at more cost. Our borders might as well be open, and Donald Trump is exactly right, because we seem to allow people in and treat them better than, and to quote him, the indigenous population. And then you have this international thing. I honestly... I was sat there last night with father-in-law thinking, is this a deliberate ploy by Starmer? Is he out to sabotage almost everything? You can go down in history as maybe out of your depth. We all know about Liz Truss, we know about Sunak, we know about Johnson. But this man, to me, goes beyond the pale. This is now... it's beyond serious. I sat watching Trump, who I disagree with sometimes before people say, and I'm sorry for the passion, but Charlie and I feel really strongly about this morning. He's telling us how to sort our country, and the man in Downing Street hasn't got a bloody clue.
What, totally. And look, when you've got a situation in Iran, as we have, where a country that, as I say, has funded international terrorism, it's funded people that want to harm us and hurt us, and have clearly gone on, you've broken their agreements that have been in place, because they have been enriching uranium that can be used to develop a nuclear weapon, something that should never be in the hands of Iran, considering that they're allies. You know, just the smallest of decisions where the US have just said, can we please land our planes?
Yeah, you don't have to be involved, but could we just land our planes on Diego Garcia? Because let me tell you, that deal's not happening now, and Gibraltar's not going to happen. And somebody texted me yesterday, and I feel like I'm sounding anti-British. If I was Trump, the next thing he'll do is he'll instigate a 100% tariff about us. Let's take a breath, me and Charlie. Let's say good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Jess. Andy from Birmingham. Well, what can you say about Starmer, eh? An asset of ours gets attacked down in Cyprus. We've got no defence down there whatsoever, other than the planes, that is, but we need some, like, sea and missile defences. You can't say that he's been taken on the hop, because the Yanks were mobbing up down there for weeks and weeks on end. He should have just, you know, if he wanted to stay at the initial strikes, you know, fair enough. But not to back America and Israel is unreal. That's it for me. He's done. Because obviously he has his priorities, and that's it. Anyway, great show.
I don't believe that Keir Starmer's priorities are the British people. I'm really sorry, and maybe I'll be told off for saying this, I don't know. If you stand in Westminster Hall and take a round of applause from a group of Muslims, and I have nothing against Muslims at all, I've had loads of... But what, you want to appeal to them that you haven't been part of this, almost joyously and proudly, and yet, as Andy quite rightly says, our people and our infrastructure is being attacked with drone missiles, and you're happy for the French to get there first. Cliff in Berkshire, I'm of the opinion now that our Prime Minister deliberately is destroying our relationship, his relationship with the US, so that he can cosy up to his beloved EU. That's very interesting. But then France got there. Giorgia Meloni is probably the most wonderful ally in the world. Christina, Jez, at this moment, our services to protect us, the Navy, the Army and the RFA, is very slim. It's because nobody wants to fight for Starmer, as we all know which section of society you're doing to protect. I go further, Christina, and I don't actually just lay this, and I put this to you, Charlie, I don't just lay this at Keir Starmer's door. That every government in the last 20 years should hold their bloody heads in shame that our defences are so pathetic that HMS Dragon will take a couple of weeks to get there. The other three are out of commission. What is that? We're an island, man. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, and look, you know, for far too long, it's clear that the UK and maybe other European countries, NATO as an organisation, has relied far too much on America, as if that they are going to be the defender of the world, the defender of the West. Now Donald Trump, rightly so, even in his first term, and this is where I think we do have to go back to, where he said, look, I'm not going to pay, you know, you as a NATO, you as a European continent, you've got to stump up the cash, you've got to fund your own defences.
I always thought that was a perfectly justifiable thing that he said.
And the EU did.
And so all the people that are running around going, why should Donald Trump be calling the shots? Because they paid billions to protect us for goddamn years, and all he wanted was to use the bases. Margaret in Yorkshire, Jez, Charlie, to all the people who voted for Labour in 24, I hope you're proud of where you've taken the UK, because I believe it's down the plug. Old Trev in Boston. As we all know, Starmer shouldn't be anywhere near politics. He belongs in a circus. When his tenure is over, there should be absolutely no way that anything like this ever happens again. I agree. Melanie, how can you do a TikTok when there's all of this going up? Liam, morning, Jez and the beautiful Charlie. Liam from Accrington, Starmer is done, finished, gone. The UK won't put up with it much longer. How do we do that? Maggie in London, his two-tier tagline has now changed for me. It's Keir, I wasn't involved. Starmer, the man is a lawyer acting under the guise of a leader, and he's a bad lawyer at that. Joanna in Salisbury, oh my God, a middle manager making a TikTok video while the world stands on the edge of what's going on. Sharon Miller, why is Starmer making a TikTok? He looks and sounds pathetic. Lena Thompson, so much response. JK was speaking to 2 ex-army friends yesterday and asked them how they would feel had they been stationed in Cyprus and a missile was sent to their base. How would you feel that the Prime Minister didn't send any armed forces to defend? They said they would feel betrayed by their government. Jezza, Tim here, an interesting fact for all of us, and Starmer, the first time Sir Winston Churchill mentioned a special relationship with the USA was tomorrow, the 5th of March, 1946. Michael, Starmer, my friends and relatives in the military, you're not defending us or our families. Resign, you're done. Sharon in Staffordshire, well done, Trump, for telling the UK people how useless our Prime Minister is. And Roger from Wales, if Trump pulls off peace in the Middle East and takes the justified credit of what he's achieved, Starmer will go down in history as the PM who, in my opinion, hindered peace. People are outraged, and they've every right to be outraged.
Totally. And look,
honestly,
you know, and there will be people that, you know, at the first side of this conflict and the first side of the troubles there wouldn't want the UK to get involved, and that is perfectly understandable.
I get that,
and totally. But what people will always understand, and people will understand, certainly your listeners and viewers, is that this is a barbaric regime. This is a regime that has funded terrorism, international terrorism that want to harm us. It is someone that turned against its own people, that's killed 40,000 of its own people. It has been enriching uranium in order to go and to finance and to create a nuclear weapon if we didn't stop them, if we didn't have the US or Israel, to be fair, intervening. You don't have to be a genius to work out that these are people that you cannot work with. And so when the Prime Minister spends his time going around telling people, well, don't worry, we didn't get involved, that is pathetic.
Yeah, it is. Without any shadow. And I said yesterday to that lawyer who was going on and on about international law, fine, but let me just tell you something. Not only, as you said, do all of these people not give a damn about international law, I would love to put you, and I will keep saying it on this show, and Starmer in front of the parents of the kids that were blown to smithereens in the Manchester Arena bombing, right? Destroyed, their lives over forever. That was ISIS, financed by these mad mullahs in Tehran, right? I would love you to go, well, we can't do anything because it's international law. Starmer is a bloody disgrace. Steve, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Steve from Bassetlaw. Keith Starmer. It is embarrassing, but if you kind of start to connect the dots, talk just a few days ago yourself reporting on the sleeper cells potentially in the UK, Iranian or other, and the reports that over 20 of those have been foiled in recent months and years, you start to wonder whether or not this is not so much embarrassment from him, but maybe there's a fear that if he doesn't grovel, if he doesn't outline the fact that we were not involved, that some of those potential sleeper cells may get activated in the UK and we could have some grave consequences on our own shores. It's not normal behaviour. Someone's clearly got him over a barrel. Apologies for the imagery there. Thank you.
no doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interests stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous energy policy, preceding this government, frankly, and all the knock-on effects to that for our economy are
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. We're live across the United Kingdom. It's Talk Breakfast with Jeremy Kyle, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Britain. Whatever your view on what's going on in the world, we'd love to hear from you. As ever, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Starmer accused yesterday by Donald Trump of being, we're taking the great out of Great Britain, being no Churchill and destroying the special relationship. He said you've got problems in your country with energy and with immigration, and basically you've got this bag of wind and human rights lawyer who won't make a decision. Somebody said to me just now, I think it was Christian, you get the impression, Charlie, that Starmer is somebody who is completely and utterly irrelevant, who via TikTok or placating the Muslims in Westminster Hall yesterday evening is trying to make himself relevant. He wasn't involved in this process, but as you said, and I think you are spot on, whether or not you think the United Kingdom should have got involved in that first wave of strikes by saying you're not even using our bases is just unbelievable. Lee, good morning.
Morning, Jezzy. Lee again, in his van from Scarborough. Oh my God, what the hell is going on? We've got the French in Cyprus trying to look after our people in Cyprus. They can't stop dinghies, never mind missiles. And then you've got that plonker, Rodney. Oh my God, really? Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm completely with him. I think that's how I felt at 5 o'clock this morning. I literally wanted to scream. It's just extraordinary.
Oh, totally. And look, how is it that we've got to a situation? I mean, it's embarrassing enough that we've got to a situation where we're relying on the French to protect us. But we should have acted sooner. We should have been prepared. We should have seen this coming. And that all, regardless of whether you want to sort of be the Prime Minister that, as you say, tries to chase, I think, a popular vote from an old conflict, an old war, by saying we didn't get involved in the start, nothing to do with it. We've learnt the lessons from the past. I mean, it's ridiculous. We are unprepared and we are not ready to defend a UK defence base in Cyprus. We're not prepared and not ready and not funded and not equipped to look after British people that are out in that region. And that lies at the Prime Minister's door.
I saw you on GMB yesterday. I didn't. Somebody told me about it. Brits in Dubai, you're having a right, old Barney, say that the government has done nothing for us over their lack of evacuation flights. We're going to speak to an expat now. Ellie Merritt is the head of recruitment at Dacia Real Estate. Ellie, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Very well. How are you?
Not bad for a balding 60-year-old has-been. How long have you been in Dubai?
So I'll be coming up to 4 years now in May. Yeah, it's gone really quick.
There's lots of argument over here. I've heard arguments from people saying, oh, they went out there for a good life, they don't pay tax, why should we do anything? The fact of the matter is you're British citizens and we're talking about a government that seems to not care whether it's Cyprus or Dubai. Many people saying the government's done nothing for us. Evacuation flights. Tell me the reality on the ground, Ellie.
It's been amazing, to be honest. Look, naturally, we have heard noises, there has been alerts, but I think overall the UAE government and the air defence has been absolutely amazing. They've told us what we need to be doing. They've told us where we need to go if anything was to happen. And to be honest with you, one of the biggest reasons why I moved to Dubai in the first place was for safety reasons. And I'm actually originally from London, so I feel so much more safer here in Dubai than I do in the UK.
Wow. Sorry, can we just do that at 6:30 in the morning? Dubai is under attack from Iran, from drones, and Ellie, who's been there 4 years, said she came from London and she left this bloody country because she felt safer in Dubai. Now, some people watching this week will go, you've got your comeuppance, some of those bitter lefties who, whatever. I'm more interested in the reality. You're saying that even abroad, the UAE government are doing more for British expats than the British government. The Foreign Office not been in touch?
Yeah, they have been in touch. We have registered our presence in the UAE as we were told to by the UK government. They've sent us a few emails, to be honest, but I think they do have some flights going out of Oman. But to be honest with you, like I said, I don't really have any interest in going back to the UK right now. I think naturally, we're very safe, and I do want to reassure everyone back in the UK that we are safe over here. And naturally, of course, it's going to be a little bit unsettling hearing these noises, but we've also got to remember that they're not targeting Dubai.
Well, they are. They are targeting Dubai, aren't they? Because they know there's a British expat community. They're sending drones. So, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you deliberately, but you could actually say the opposite to that they are. I mean, the other view here is, and I'd love to get your response to this, is, you know, not comeuppance, but there's many people saying they're all going to have to come back and their tax-free life's going to end and the property they've bought is going to be worth absolutely nothing. That's just people who are bitter and twisted. What would you say to that argument, Ellie?
Of course, and I think, look, everyone's going to have their own opinions in the situation that's going on, but we're on the ground here. We know exactly what's going on. And I think Dubai has an amazing system where we've been through COVID before, we've been through the floods where we had so much rain, and I think it was a year's worth of rain in one day, and we overcame that. So there's a lot of things that have been thrown Dubai's way, and they've been able to come over it. And yeah, I think that we will bounce back. We'll bounce back.
So can I just ask you to repeat, because it's the line, this will go viral, I'm telling you absolutely. Despite the fact that you're sat in Dubai and there have been drone attacks from the Iranian regime, you feel safer than you do in Sadiq Khan's London, where you used to live?
Yeah, for sure.
Why is that? What was it about London that you didn't feel safe about?
I think, look, everyone's going to have their opinions again, but I think with the way that the UAE has been looking after the city and what's been going on in the UAE, I do feel very safe. There have been 98% of the missiles have been intercepted over here, and I don't think there's any other place in the world where these types of missiles would be intercepted.
How would you describe London? I know you've been there 4 years. What would your criticisms of London be? I mean, not that it's the centre of the world for stabbing and crime, because it is.
I mean, look, you said it yourself. I think, yeah, the crime there, especially for safety for women, that was one of the biggest reasons why I moved over here. So I think, yeah, naturally, yes, unfortunately, there has been some fatalities over here, but in terms of if we were looking over crime over the last week or so in the UK, I'm sure there was a lot more.
Really good to have you on. Obviously, we say it to everybody, stay safe. And from my point of view, and Charlie Rowley's here, I think we absolutely should do everything to get as many expats home as possible. She didn't want to come home. She's perfectly happy in Dubai. That's the point. If people don't come home, then no one's after you. I've forgotten. Brilliant. But you know, but this was it broadened out. Obviously, you know, Ed Balls, great man, and Susanna, you know, were putting the question to me about whether I want them to come back on business or a first class flights, and I sort of said, well, look, you know, I think if you don't want to come back, you don't have to. No. It sounds as though that the UEA have got a brilliant defence system in place. It's not about punishing people because they've gone to Dubai for a better life, potentially. If there's a better tax system, if they've got lower crime, if they've got better weather, if they've got better educational outputs and better defence systems, then fair play. If you can go, you would go. But the reality is they are British citizens. They are British expats. And expat is key in that because they have been in the UK. They have paid into a system. They have been here before. They have got a national insurance number. Yep. If they are in a conflict zone, I don't care what part of the world it is, I don't care what politics of envy you want to play because you think that these people are rich. There'll be people out there that tweeted actually yesterday, or reached me on X, that said that they are obviously nurses out there. They are not the most well paid. They are not living the life of luxury. If they want to come home, then the UK government should jolly well get a plane out there to help them if the airspace is open and it's safe to get them home. Can't we send the RNLI? They're quite good at bringing people into this country free of charge, aren't they? You know what the front of the Mail said, and we've talked about a Prime Minister who Trump has mocked as no Churchill, but I want to talk about the Navy. A Navy stranded in port. It was only a few hours after the French sent an up-to-date, modern, brilliant, multi-billion-pound aircraft carrier to support its people with aircraft in Cyprus that begrudgingly Starmer, right, sent HMS Dragon, apparently, which will take a few weeks to get there, by which time it'll all be done. And again, I think to myself, is that him just doing what he feels he has to? Great piece in the Mail, page 6 and 7. Here's a surprise. Navy no longer rules the waves. Of course it doesn't. And I want to take this point up because this isn't on Starmer. This is on your lot as well and lots before them. I really do believe that the way that we have decimated our defence systems over the years because we believed there was a Cold War and we believed it was the right... is an absolute disgrace, and I think it's been proven to be incredibly naive.
Well, it's been proved to be found wanting. You're absolutely right. And look, successive defence secretaries, I think, of all governments have obviously asked for more money. They have. Ben Wallace was in particular very vocal about that. But look, I mean, if I was in Downing Street now, I would be... I'd be sweating every day because...
Glad Prince Andrew doesn't work there.
Yeah.
Drop it in, baby.
Because, you've got a boss in Number 10 that's obviously... And obviously a political team and a digital team that have obviously put out a video to make it clear to the world time and time again that we weren't involved in these initial strikes.
Proud of that.
Proud of that, because you want to play maybe to a particular base, because you're still playing politics on the back of losing a by-election. I don't know.
But that point's really relevant. It's not about politics, it's about what's right and wrong, isn't it?
Exactly. But now, if you've been so proud of that, and proud of that sort of line to take, as it were, to get that message out there, but yet Cyprus, UK airbase in Cyprus, has been attacked, and it's going to take days, potentially weeks, to get one vessel there. If anything now else happens in Cyprus, God forbid if you're religious or not, but just let's hope it doesn't, or if there's an escalation, which I think there probably will be.
And me.
Because, the US have ordered...
Catch up. Catch up.
I would be wanting that vessel to get there as soon as possible.
But the point is, this is really symptomatic. And by the way, I can give you an exclusive. We're going to cross to Iran live very soon on this breakfast show. Crossing to Iran very soon. First time the station's done that. Can I just say, it's symptomatic of him. I've always said about Starmer that I never felt that he had political DNA, leadership, antennae, just gets it. It's all too mechanical, paper-led, focus groups, human rights, Hermer and him having an oat latte and deciding what looks good and what doesn't. Leaders lead. They go with what they feel. They might get it right, they might get it wrong, but they lead. He is not a leader, and we can sit here every day and carp from the sidelines about how this country's on its backside, but this is us internationally. Eric, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. On my way to work, listening to news. Embarrassed to be British. We've got men led by a donkey, because that man in Number 10 is an absolute arse. I have never ever in my life seen such a weak leader. This used to be such a great country, full of pride, and this guy's making us look like idiots. Honest to God, we need to get rid of him, and we need to get a proper person, man, woman, whoever it is that's got some gumption to go, you know what, we are standing for this. This is Great Britain, and when somebody attacks us, we go back twice as hard to say next time it'll hurt you as twice as hard as it'll hurt us. Anyway, have a good day, Jezza.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 to 7. It is, of course, Wednesday, the 4th of March, and you're waking up to the news. The continuing story, of course, is all about Iran. Yesterday, I would say that Donald Trump blew a head gasket like you've never, ever heard it before. I'm going to keep playing this clip because this, to me, is how the United Kingdom is viewed and how it can get itself off his backside. This is him, right? Laying into the UK, but laying it on the line as to how our Prime Minister, this ineffectual git, is ruining what this great country once was.
But this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? They ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. The UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration was, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK, you have a terrible mayor of London, terrible, he's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back.
Unbelievable. Fran, good morning.
Hey Jeremy, it's Fran here in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I can't stand this Keir Starmer guy. He is so weak, is absolutely embarrassing. What he is he's trying to be everything to everyone, and when you try and please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. We are literally right in that period of weak men, because he is so weak. I just can't stand him. Every time I hear him, I just want to gouge my eardrums out so I don't have to listen to him anymore. Anyway, love the show, bye.
Gouge my eardrums out. Charlie Rowley is with me, but she's not wrong, is she? And you actually, I mean, for people just waking up, you might have heard what Trump said. You might agree, you might disagree. Whilst all of that was going on, and I'm going to keep going back to this today with no apology, right? Our base in Cyprus, RAF Akrotiri, was attacked with a drone missile from the Iranian regime. Whether or not, as Charlie said earlier, you believe we should have been involved in the first strikes or not, the first rule of a British government and Prime Minister is to protect its people. So lacking in any perception is Starmer that the French, for God's sake, had already sent an aircraft carrier to protect their people and said, we'll do right by you, don't worry about it. What does Starmer do? He begrudgingly eventually sends HMS Dragon, the only ship we've got that's knackered and will take 2 or 3 weeks to get there. Just disgraceful. Listen to this. Sam, I'm in Dubai, Jez, and watching Starmer forever placating the Muslim community that he's not involved with makes me feel even more abandoned. We have had nothing from the UK government, and the more he says, the more I know he doesn't care about us. He is too busy appeasing the Muslim community. The basis of that, if you're just waking up, was Starmer stood in Westminster Hall yesterday and was proudly announcing to a bunch of Muslim people that had come to see him that we were no part of this. Just to prepare, have a watch, have a listen to this.
But on Iran, I want to make clear the UK was not involved in the offensive strikes of the US and Israel, and that remains the case.
Let's give him a round of applause, shall we? Let's give him a round of applause. That is politics. That is playing a political game, Charlie.
Yep.
That's not country first, that's him.
Totally. And you made the point earlier on about leadership. Being a good leader, or being a leader...
You're not going to be popular all the time, are you?
Not going to be. It's not about making the easy decisions. Now, for him, in his sort of world, in his political bubble with his advisors, that he's probably thought he's made the easy... He probably thinks it's the right decision, but he thinks it's the right one. But it's the easy one to say, right, I'm going to talk to this particular section of the community and society where we've lost a Gordon and Denton by-election, where we're going to be hammered by the Greens, who are now second in the polls. They leapfrogged Labour yesterday.
Yep.
What do I do? What do I do? Well, Prime Minister, go out and say we've learnt the lessons of Iraq, and we're not going to get involved in any more conflicts. And by the way, we're on your side to this particular community. To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, I can't even work that one out, because you've got Iranian community, a Muslim population that are desperate for the overthrow of this regime that have been so oppressive, that preach hate, that preach terror. You've got a whole Muslim population that are actually in the UAE that we should be on the side with, that we should be working in partnership with Dubai, with Qatar, with the Saudis, in order to rid this poisonous cancer, which is in the Middle East, which is Iran.
Mate, it's beyond me. People are in their droves, wound up. Wayne, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. Another depressing day for us Brits. We're getting shamed all around the world. Let's just hope the French Navy are a bit more useful than the police, because they can't stop a dinghy, never mind a missile. Thank you to the Greeks. But like I say, once again, where's our armed forces? Where's our steel? Where's our character? It's slowly being eroded by this stupid little man. Keep up the good work, Mr. Kyle. Good man.
Friend, morning, Jez and Charlie. Can anybody tell me, says Ian Andrew, the point in having a very expensive military base in Diego Garcia that we won't allow our closest ally to use when we have no armed services to speak of? It's a complete waste of money and disgrace, says Ian in Oldham. Amanda, I'm incandescent with rage, Jez. Starmer continues to shame our once great country and all those who have given their lives in protecting us. His treasonous behaviour continuing to allow unknown fighting-age men into our shores at this time of war is utterly beyond belief. And there's the next thing. What did I hear Starmer, some of his acolytes say yesterday? The problem is as well, you know, if we go in there and then there's a problem, all of these Iranians could end up in the United Kingdom. Well, do something about stopping it happening then.
Yeah, precisely, which is why there's no point. But what
I think I've been so angry for ages.
But what is the strategy? What is the strategy of the UK government? What does it actually believe in this conflict? Because, I mean, I don't know.
No.
And you could be... I'd rather them actually tell us, and we could all be piling on and saying how we're against it. Because what it seems to me is that they're not going to get involved. They're going to try and be defensive where they have to be defensive and walk that sort of tightrope. But all the while, when there is going to be a mass immigration problem, a mass migration problem of people leaving Iran if this conflict goes on for longer than anybody hopes. So what is the UK government going to do? I bet you anything he will rush to say we didn't get involved, but we're Britain and we're a humanitarian example across the world. Everybody's welcome.
It's really interesting what you said about, you know, all the people all the time. And then you end up looking rudderless, completely rudderless. Listen, people have a right to their opinion. Lee in Market Harbour goes further and says, Starmer in that video said to the Muslim crowd, you are the new face of Britain. That tells me, says Lee in Market Harbour, everything. This is interesting. The Donald told us about housekeeping when he was here last time, and Starmer didn't take any note. Ermine, good morning. He's in Singapore. Jez, can someone please explain who created, this is definitely for Charlie Rennie, who created international law? Everyone is talking about it in relation to the current conflict. Who wrote it? Who approved it? Who's policing it? What's the point of it?
Well, exactly. And when it comes to that very bit of that question about who is policing it, well, it's certainly not Iran, who don't adhere to international law, that don't care. And neither does Russia, and neither to a certain extent does China.
Can I just salute Cal? This is the greatest headline ever on the straps. He sits there every day. Navel gazing. That is brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
That is absolutely true. Navel gazing.
Yeah, and people that are sitting in Cyprus will be gazing across the sea for about a week and a half.
Graham Pack says he's in Bushey. Do you know where Bush is famous?
Hertfordshire.
It's where I was conceived.
Oh, well.
There's a thought.
I'm sure there's a blue plaque somewhere.
Oh, what?
A blue plaque.
Maybe. It wasn't in. Sorry, it wasn't on a park bet. I don't know. They're both dead. I can't ask them. Starmer can't even negotiate welfare cuts with his own backbenchers. So how in the name of the Lord is he going to be able to negotiate a settlement with the mad mullahs of Iran? Great point. Nick is in Gloucester. Surely there's enough reason to bring a vote of no confidence against Starmer now. His job is defending our country, and he's even miserably failed at that. He's alienated us with our main and most important ally. Get that man, said loosely, out, and that party too. It can't happen though, can it? It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. But today, you know, we've got PMQs, and you know, all the party leaders will be able to put the questions to the Prime Minister. I'd be absolutely.
I hope Badenoch goes absolutely for the jugular about the embarrassment of him. Can I bring it on to something else? And I'm not moving it. We are trying to make contact with Hassan Ahmadian, an associate professor of study at the Tehran University. But you won't be surprised to know that the technology is not really working their end at the moment. We will do our best with that. Can I bring it domestically to further enhance the belief that this government is completely deranged? Yesterday, Rachel from Account stood up, and while the growth forecast had been shown by earlier in the day that it was all going wrong, she said, this is what she said: living standards are up. despite a massive tax rate on workers and pensioners, a massive tax burden, more on welfare than's ever been. She painted quite a good thing. And you might be surprised to say she made a statement saying how much the Labour Party's done. If in this sentence there isn't the phrase breakfast clubs, I'll fall off my bleeding chair. Have a listen.
This Labour government has funded 30 hours of free childcare for working families. We are rolling out free breakfast clubs at primary schools. And we are set to achieve the biggest reduction in child poverty over a parliament since records began by reversing the shameful two-child limit imposed by the party opposite.
Brilliant. So she paints a picture that we're OK, but I thought we had the highest tax burden, the biggest debts, we've got welfare that's out of control, we've got borders that are unmanageable, we've got no police, no army, no defence, the weather's crap, and she can't add up. Sorry, I'm having a bad morning.
Well, exactly, and, you know, it took the head of the OBR, who, and don't forget she's got a new head of the OBR because the last one put out her budget ahead of time, which she didn't appreciate all that much. You know, that said that, OK, the OBR forecast at the moment, obviously not taking into account the current circumstances, that in 2028 there might be growth up, but there always is growth up, which is always revised down. This year, growth is down in sectors that actually need to be turbocharged and
like small business.
Like small business. The construction sector. How are we going to build the homes that we need for the millions of people, particularly young people that need to get on the housing ladder?
Or immigrants who need new houses. Under the Green Party, they get a house and a job will be allowed in.
Yeah. I mean,
how frightening is that, by the way? If I'm on one of the first hour, they're second in an opinion poll. The Green Party. Well, let's legalise heroin, let everybody in and give them everything that we don't get, that we work for a living for.
And and that's the indictment on this government. It is this government that is the hellmouth. They've been there for 18 months.
I think I need therapy, Charlie, this morning. I'm quite angry.
But it's not... I mean, politics, someone once said this, and it's always resonated to me. I think it might have been Grant Shapps. You know, politics is simple. It's not easy, because you've got to make tough decisions. You've got to... But broad, it's simple. It's common sense. It's just how do you get from A to B? We all want the same thing. We all want better health service, better education, low crime, defence services, spending up. We want to have a protection of the country. We want a growing economy. We want a government that does what Keir Starmer said he was going to do, is that doesn't encroach on our lives, that has a light touch approach on our lives, to let us all get on.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees with that. Even people in the Labour Party agree with that. But what are they showing us?
Nothing.
What are they doing about it?
It's on about child poverty. So the answer to child poverty is I want to get kids out of child poverty. We all do. So that's it. We're going to keep paying the feckless to keep having babies. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to lie down in a dark room with a wet towel over my head. Morning, Pete.
Morning, Jezza. I totally agree with Donald Trump. We don't need this Labour government. We don't need Starmer. Well, I've got a new nickname for him. Neville Starmer Lane. The appeaser, just like Keir Starmer Lane. Yeah, that's it. That'll do. Have we ever had a worse government than this? And they refuse to go. There needs to be some law change to say that if governments carry on like this, they can be removed.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 4 minutes to 7. Myself and Charlie Rowley on Talk Breakfast. You can actually feel the palpable anger out there. Listen to this. This is Sean on Starmer. Morning, Shawnee.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby. Whilst Donald Trump's on the TV telling us that Keir Starmer's no Winston Churchill and that he's pandering to Muslims in the UK, literally 12 hours later, Keir Starmer stood up pandering to Muslims in the UK. Whilst, I mean, this man has got to be compromised and he's definitely the enemy of the English people. I've never known a politician to cause more division than this man here. He needs to go sharpish. Anyway, Jeremy, great show. Keep it up. Don't hear any of this stuff on any other broadcasting station.
I don't know about any other broadcasting station, and I've done this for so long, I don't give a fat rat's ass what anybody says. Dave in Reading, where I was born. Conceived in Bushey, born in Reading. Morning, Jez. I'm an ex-Royal Green Jacket of 10 years. I did multiple tours of Northern Ireland, and I am truly heartbroken at what has happened to a country I once served. I think that's the reality as well, isn't it?
Totally. And there'll be people who, and I saw something the other day about, a family who'd obviously lost somebody to service in Iraq, that would be sort of, they said, the family, the wife actually said that, her late husband would be turning in his grave, knowing the fact that we have been so indecisive, so found wanting, not taking a decision. Inaction is a decision, and the fact that the Prime Minister feels that that's the right one.
Michael says ex-military and reservists who are now MPs on the Labour benches must be ashamed. Yeah, I'm sure there are. This is great. Natasha says, I've just listened to Ellie, the expat in Dubai, saying she feels safer there because she's in a country that's run by sensible people, Jez. Here, we're run by morons consumed by ideology and wokeism who do not care, I believe, about us, the British citizens. And that sort of sums up where we're at. We can talk domestically and we can talk internationally. But it's true what Trump said about energy, and it's true what he said about immigration. You can talk about embarrassment on the international stage. You can talk about the lies from Rachel Reeves. The things are getting better. No, they're getting worse. Yeah. And people's anger is absolutely there.
Absolutely. And look, everybody that calls up in the morning and your show every day of the week, they are people that get up earlier than the Prime Minister. They get up earlier than the Chancellor. They go out to work. They make decisions day in, day out about things that actually matter. They can see the wood through the trees, which is why they're probably so incensed that this government can't.
We love having you on. Listen, we have got an amazing show lined up between now and 10 o'clock. I have got some stellar guests. We've got the former Cabinet Minister Michael Gove. We've got Dame Emily Thornberry, who hates Starmer with a passion. We've got the ex-Tory leader Ian Duncan Smith. We've got a former Israeli government spokesman Elon Levy. We've got Dan Hodges, Isabel Oakeshott, Samara Gill, and in his first interview since he defected from the Tories to Reform, Nadine Zahawi, who, he gets a response, that's for sure. He will be on the show. If you want to be part of it, 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes and your calls. Your text to 87222. He's no Churchill, said Donald Trump. He's no Prime Minister in my mind. Charlie Rowley, we love you. Good luck with the jogging. You're off jogging, aren't you?
I might be going.
There's a thought. Listen, news at 7 and all of your thoughts. Keep them coming.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 7 o'clock. You would talk. It is, of course, the home of common sense. It's the home of the alarm clock Brit, where people come and have their say on the news of the day. God, that sounded like it rhymed. If you do want to be part of the debate, and there is much palpable anger this morning, I'll explain why in just a tick. 0344 499 1000, the only number you need. Voice note, call, whatever. Get that in your brains. 87222 on the text. You are waking up to, I have to say, personally, probably one of the most embarrassing days I can remember in my 60 years on this planet. Yesterday, whatever you make of the Donald sat in the Oval Office, he tore just massive strips off Starmer, and he pointed out in no uncertain terms what is wrong with this country of ours. And for all the people who sit in their ivory towers at the BBC and where they sit in cafes in Islington going on about international law, the vibe amongst the British people is that you are so out of your depth. You are such an embarrassment. I mean, we'll talk about Reeves in a minute, who seems to believe that people's living standards were up. But this is what Donald Trump said about the United Kingdom. And if you disagree with him, tell me. Because so far in an hour, everybody says spot on Donald Trump. Have a listen.
But this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? They ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. The UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration is, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK You have a terrible mayor of London, terrible. He's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back.
Love him or hate him as a person, he's absolutely spot on in many people's minds, including my mind. And let's bring it to Starmer. I mean, the embarrassment yesterday afternoon. He must have known, with the build-up of the fleet and the forces that America was organising in the Middle East, he must have seen. Was there any part of him that thought, you know what, maybe I should be on the front foot? No, 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 no. Yesterday afternoon, what tipped it over the edge for me and for many, my father-in-law and I were ranting yesterday afternoon, is a Cypriot RAF base was hit at Akrotiri by a missile fired from Iran, right? Even if you don't want to get involved in the initial strikes, Keir, right? I'll give you that. That's your business. It's not how I would have done it, but that's your right, apparently. But we're talking about British citizens. And the French send an aircraft carrier before we've even got our heads out of our backsides, and then begrudgingly a few hours later, he looks around at our decimated forces and says, oh, I'll send HMS Dragon, that'll be all right. It might take a few weeks to get there. It's got a few engine problems. And I just asked the question all morning, how the hell do we look on the international stage? And then just to nail it before we go to James Price, whilst all of that's going on, a lot of people are saying that Starmer's politics is about placating the Parliamentary Labour Party, placating the Muslim vote. Let's have it out there after Gorton and Denton. The Greens, of course, won that, made a big thing about sectarian voting. Whilst all of this is going on and world leaders are scrambling to look after their people and have a response, he stands up in a hallway in Westminster to a group of Muslims from a Muslim community, nothing against them, and proudly announces that we're nothing to do with it. This is a man playing politics and saving his own backside over the reputation of this country, in my mind. Have a listen, have a watch.
But on Iran, I want to make clear the UK was not involved in the offensive strikes of the US and Israel, and that remains the case.
Hang your head in shame, Sir Keir Starmer. Ken, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy and Charlie. Ken here in Dorset. I've never been embarrassed to be British before, but I am now. This is ridiculous. I mean, we send one destroyer to Cyprus late, which has got technical difficulties, apparently. We should be sending a carrier group. Ay, ay, ay. And as for Starmer, well, he is just... words fail me. I mean, he's not just an embarrassment. His incompetence oozes out of every pore. Oh, my God!
Do you know what? People will think that I'm losing it. He's absolutely right. James Price, former government advisor, you're going to have to calm me down this morning, mate. I don't think I've ever been this angry.
I'm not here to calm you down, my friend. I'm here to make it even worse for you, I'm afraid. It's not just some hall that Starmer spoke in. That was Westminster Hall that survived for 1,000 years. The roof above Keir Starmer, ancient wood that had been around for at least the time of Henry VIII. We found tennis balls up there in the 20s made of human hair that when there was some renovation work done. So Henry VIII probably knocked them up there himself. It's the site of where Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II laid in state all those days, and hundreds of thousands of people queued for miles to pay their respects to an icon of Great Britain. It's the place where Charles I, where William Wallace, where Sir Thomas More were all put on trial. Many other kings have given speeches, and presidents as well. It's also, by the way, ironically, the site in World War II was used as a small munitions factory to build parts for the war effort. And that is also the site where Keir Starmer stands, hands shaking so much he has to hold them against that lectern, giving a hostage reading to a group of people, terrified as he is of them kicking off in some wider way, knowing that if there were great civil unrest in this country at this point, because of what what's been going on in Israel and Gaza, and now because of what might be happening in Iran and around the world, and what could have happened if India and Pakistan had kicked off and so on, he is rightly terrified, because of briefings, I suspect, from the security services, of the domestic impact of what happens around the world, because we have so let in people around this country who hate the country, who only want to sponge off of it, and who want to start inflicting, as Donald Trump has said, their own kinds of religious justice and courts in this country, in a flagrant rebuke of thousands of years of justice on this island. So I'm not here to make it better for you, Jeremy. I'm here to make people realise it might even be worse than they think.
Mate, I literally yesterday afternoon was telling the story of my father-in-law. You know, he's 80. It was apoplectic. I mean, let's nail this, shall we? I've never been particularly supportive of the French. They don't seem to be able to stop migrants for 700 million quid a year coming over to this country. Even they sent an aircraft carrier preemptively saying we want to defend our people. My point is this, James. Even if Starmer, because of Iraq, because of human law, because of Hermer, who's obviously got something on him, doesn't think that we should have been included in that first wave, the fact that we didn't even know it was going to happen tells you our standing. But you surely, your first rule as Prime Minister of any government is to protect British people. And yet he has proven to be hamstrung on even defending his own people as he is. He can't get a bill through the House of Commons without the Parliamentary Labour Party holding his cojones with both hands. And now he can't even make a decision. And I don't have to, and I've said it before, I don't have to love everything about Donald Trump. But his little speech about energy and his little speech about, you know, safety and immigration, he's absolutely spot on, isn't he, JP?
I'm afraid he is. We've got the most. This is the real tragedy, right? We have the most pro-British president ever, I think, to sit in that White House. Certainly since 1812, and we set fire to it, and they had to whitewash it, which is why it's now called the White House. We've repaired relationships pretty well since then, and since the little tete-a-tete we had in 1776. And that's all it seems now for naught. And look, Trump has not been perfect, right? We should say this. The way that he's talked about Canada, fine. The way he's talked about Greenland, fine.
What he said about our armed forces, absolutely enraged me. I want that on the record because it's true.
Yeah,
but you say what I say every day. Not everything about him. But in this moment, he's spot on. Spot on.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it is so embarrassing. It's embarrassing, by the way, that who was sat next to Trump as he was saying this? The Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz. And Germany, Trump is just as unpopular, if not more unpopular, than he is in Britain. And yet Merz was there saying Trump is right. He's right, even, Merz says, to break off trade with Spain, because at least Spain has been worse than Britain. It's been actively horrendous when it comes to the way that they've been treating the Americans and not allowing them to use bases and saying they're war criminals, blah, blah, blah. And why has Merz done this? Because Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, sat next to Trump in that slightly glitzy golden room, has just come back from a visit to China. And he's seen what China is doing. And this is what we've got to hold in our minds when we think about all the goings-on around the world. The fact that the Chinese Communist Party wants world domination in one way or another. At least it wants to be totally dominant in Asia, and given the size of the markets there and the population, it counts in some ways to the same thing. The Americans will not allow that to happen. The Chinese have been supporting this disgusting Iranian regime, helping them to rebuild their defenses, helping them to build more missiles at extra speed. And that is why this has all happened. And at the same time, they are going around helping to destroy other economies. You look at the German economy, everyone will know it for one thing, being car manufacture. I think Volkswagen's domination of sort of 24% of their market is down to 15%. Why? Because the Chinese are flooding it with cheap electric Chinese cars. And so Merz has gone over there, has seen the power and the terror of the Chinese Communist Party, and has gone, actually, however much Orange Man bad, the Chinese are much worse, and that's why the Germans are now going in and supporting the Americans when it comes to Iran, because this will be the first move, I think, or one of the first moves of what I'm afraid to say might be a civilizational battle. I don't want it to be World War III, but at the very least, it's Cold War II.
I couldn't agree more, and I think I've never heard anger like this morning. Rob Austin in Swindon. Good morning, Jez. Keep on keeping on. You speak from a majority of this nation. This government is a complete embarrassment to us. It really, really boils my blood. Alan Hanratty, Jez, what this Gulf conflict has exposed is that this UK government is more politically aligned with Muslims around the world than our own American allies. Morning Joe says, well, I wonder if the French would have sent a warship to protect Cyprus if we didn't have an EU-friendly Prime Minister. So many people getting involved and real anger. And you know, I wanted to ask you, because another thing, you've just said it and I've said it, there isn't everything I agree with Donald Trump, and I found it appalling what he said about our troops, and I took him to task on that. Let's talk about the reality of going forward. He talked about Diego Garcia. We know about the Chagos Islands deal, that there's been rumours of Gibraltar. I know one thing about Donald Trump. He won't forget this. Diego, the Chagos deal won't happen now. Gibraltar won't happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't launch some sort of tariff on the United Kingdom. But you know, the special relationship. I'll ask you. You used to work for the government, right? Will it survive? It's not just on people. It's an agreement that's lasted hundreds of years. Will it change after this, or once Starmer is consigned to the dustbin of political history, will it recover?
I think the political and economic reality will mean that it will have to recover regardless of who comes along next, unless, of course, you know, they manage to pick as Starmer's successor one of the nuttier people, which now I say it out loud means it's probably quite likely to happen.
Yeah.
Certainly when the next right of centre government, whether that's Reform, the Conservatives or whatever come in, it will improve. It will have to improve because we've signed major deals. If you look at something like AUKUS, people will remember this is the deal between Britain and the United States and Australia to bring the Australians in on the kind of top end nuclear submarine technology. Why is that for? Again, because China. Yeah, exactly. You've got the Five Eyes deals as well. That I hope to God will continue because that provides absolutely crucial intelligence for the protection of the United Kingdom as well. And the economic ties, the personal ties, you know, everyone who watches this regularly will know that Mrs. P is an American. I think that we are always at our best when we're together. And Churchill, who remember that Trump invoked Winston Churchill last night in saying that this is not Winston Churchill we're dealing with here in regards to Sir Shifty. Churchill himself, half American, also his last ever piece of advice to his cabinet after his second stroke, when he was leaving cabinet and leaving the prime ministership for the last time, warned his cabinet never be separated from the Americans. And I hope this will remain true today, despite what seems like the best active efforts of this disgusting Quisling to do this.
Couldn't agree. Very quickly, we're going to go in a tick to the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, but I'd like your response, please. I mean, we've got that on the international stage. There's incumbent in number 10 who doesn't seem to know how to make a decision unless it upsets certain people. And we've got a woman running the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who doesn't seem to be able to add up. And I mean, yesterday, despite the fact that the OBR said that, you know, the economy's flatlining, it's going down, this is what she stood up in the Commons and said about, you know, living standards are up. Here she is, delusional Rachel's next.
Today, the new forecasts from the Office of Budget Responsibility show that our plan is the right one. Yeah. Inflation is down. Yeah. Borrowing is down. Yeah. Living standards are up and the economy is growing. Yeah. I know that the question that people will ask themselves at the next election is this: are me and my family better off? I am determined that the answer will be yes.
Well, it's not yes at the moment, is it, James? Because taxation is higher than it's ever been. Small businesses are closing by the bucket load. Youth unemployment's up. Everything's in the toilet. She's deranged as well. I don't even know how else to describe it.
Absolutely right. I think almost everything she said there is wrong. Although the economy has been growing a tiny bit, the population has been rising as well, with immigrants coming in. And we learned yesterday with British people fleeing the country, which is a tragedy. That means we're all in a personal recession because per capita, the economy is shrinking. And I know you've got my old boss, the former Chancellor, Nadhim Zahawi, coming on for the first time, which is great. You should ask him about this, because if he had got the chance to be in number 11 for longer, we'd be in a damn sight different situation, because there's someone who understands business, who understands tax cuts having a personal benefit on people's lives, as well as stimulating the economy to get it going again, and someone who understands you need to have pay restraint, rather than the fact that I think It was announced yesterday that the welfare budget will balloon to over £400 billion by 2030.
This is
just
on.
totally,
You're dead right.
utterly
Page 2 of the Sun.
unsustainable.
Absolutely, you are absolutely
Madness.
right. It's the whole thing. Honestly, I can't even. Listen. Thank you, my friend, because I was sitting here on my own at 5:45 this morning, thinking I'm losing the will to live. But you justify the fact that I'm not barking mad. We love you, man. Yeah, Nadeem Zahawi on later on. James, thank you very much indeed. We've got a stellar list today on the show. Michael Gove, Nadeem Zahari, Emily Thornbury, Ian Duncan Smith, Elon Levy. We're also going to get one of my favourite and most amazing people, the Gruning Gang's whistleblower, Maggie Oliver, will be in this studio because she's taking Starmer and his ridiculous government to court. 7:20, let's cross to Westminster. So the Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday said everything's good. The Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, my friend Mel Stride. Good morning, Mel. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm absolutely fine. It's a bit chilly, but other than that,
doing the job. You see, got the old barber on. Good man. Sorry, I'm gonna talk to you about Trump and Starmer in a minute, but let's go straight to Rachel Reeves. You're the man who understands finance. James Price nailed it. Almost everything she said there was wrong. She talked, of course, about breakfast clubs. She talked, of course, about free childcare and child poverty. But is it not fair to say that taxation is the highest it's ever been? Youth unemployment's the highest it's ever been. The price of energy, the price of food, almost everything is up. And I would readily expect you to agree with this, that most people listening to this find that the money in their pocket is going less further, and actually they feel a lot worse off under this government.
Yeah, absolutely right, Jeremy. I mean, totally detached from reality yesterday. She came to the chamber of the House of Commons and basically told us everything was absolutely fine and we should be terribly grateful for all the hard work she's done to make it so. But of course that's not the case. What we saw in the forecast yesterday was a substantial downgrade on growth for this year, anemic growth across the forecast. We've seen unemployment, the forecast rising for unemployment this year, next year and the year after. You're right about young people, and you're right about tax, very right about tax. In fact, we're now going across this forecast to the highest tax burden in the history of our country, and what we saw in this forecast was that tax burden actually going up compared to the other one. And that's right at the heart of why we've not got that growth. It's at the heart of why we're seeing terrible unemployment numbers and a sluggish economy, and people are feeling it in their pockets. And, you know, the clip you just played there, Rachel said something like, you know, and I want to see people getting better off, and I'm determined that that's going to happen. Well, I'm sorry, just being determined that it's going to happen and saying that in the House of Commons doesn't make it happen. You need a plan, and the plan has to be about getting some of these spending, this government spending down, particularly welfare, getting people off benefits and into work. Then you can get the deficit down, and then you can get taxes down and get jobs created and get the economy moving.
I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't think she is either. But if I look at it just from my point of view, I would have thought that small businesses would have been the very bedrock of how you make growth work in a community and a society, because they create jobs, that creates wealth, the money filters down. They've done almost everything, I think, to destroy small businesses, whether it's the NI increases or whether it's workers' rights, the minimum wage. But she doesn't seem to understand, again, almost like him, that actually, you know, I mean, inflation, everything. I'm not. You made the point. He wanted to knock $5 billion off a welfare bill that needs about $50 billion off it, and his backbenchers wouldn't let him even knock $1 billion. I mean, the whole thing's a complete mess, and it's not going to get any better financially, is it? Every Labour government that's ever been in power, in the end, we're skint. That's the truth.
Yeah, they spend and spend and spend until they run out of other people's money. Every Labour government in history has seen unemployment rise on their watch, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. But, you know, to the heart of the matter, you put your finger on it. At the end of the day, it is not governments that create wealth and growth in the economy. It's businesses. It's people getting up in the morning and going out and working hard. And if you make it more difficult for them to do that, or you take away the incentives to do that by taxing the living daylights out of them, don't be surprised if you get less of those good things. Yeah. And that is the story here. And the reason why this government doesn't get it is look at the experience of their front bench. They are not packed full of people that have set up and run businesses and understand these hard truths. I mean, look, my background, Jeremy, was when I left university, it wasn't long before I set up my own business. I did it from the kitchen table. I built businesses here from scratch in the UK. I then went to America and I built a business in the United States, right? And it was really tough, and I had my ups and downs, and in the end I prevailed and I did pretty well. But it really is hard, and if you do that at the coalface, you understand these things, and that is the key dividing line between us and the Labour Party. They don't get or understand business, how it works, and the devastating consequences of high taxes.
Final question on this, which is going to relate to the Gulf War. I'm going to love asking him this, aren't I? What, Mel Stride giving her some slack? Britain faces an inflation shock, I'm told. Well, we know this within weeks due to the Iran war. Would you cut Reeves some slack because of the conflict in Iran?
Well, look, she can't control that, but what she can control, and is palpably messed up, is creating a resilient economy that can withstand those kind of shocks, and that's what she's failed to do. So yes, it's quite possible that we're going to see inflationary pressures now. We're going to see, you know, the world economy maybe even slowing down, and we might find borrowing rates going up as a consequence of what's happening elsewhere. She can't control that, and that's fair enough. But what she could have controlled, and what she can still do something about to some degree if she gets her act together, is to have a plan to grow our economy much faster, and then you can withstand these shocks without everybody being plunged into, you know, ever more difficult cost of living crisis. And so, you know, I accept she can't control what's going on elsewhere, but she should certainly have been doing better back here in the UK.
You'll love this. JK, if Reeves didn't tax us so bloody much, we wouldn't need breakfast clubs and free childcare in the first place. I have to ask you from a Tory point of view, Mel, I don't think starting the show this morning I've ever been more angry. I'll try and get it out. I was sat with my father-in-law yesterday. He was apoplectic with rage. Donald Trump, who we don't agree with on all things. I don't like when he criticised British soldiers, but sat in the Oval Office and basically told this pathetic Prime Minister how to run an economy, how he should deal with immigration, how he should deal with energy. But what really got me yesterday was this human being. We've got a British Army or RAF base at Akrotiri in Cyprus attacked by a missile shot from Iran, and our own Prime Minister is so utterly obsessed with placating almost everybody that it takes the French, for God's sake, to send an aircraft carrier to protect its people / ours, and then begrudgingly some hours later, Mel, he sends, and this isn't just him, I lay this at your party for years, he sends one ridiculously out-of-date HMS Dragon that will take a few weeks to get there if it doesn't break down. It is the biggest embarrassment I honestly, personally have ever felt about being British, whether we should have been there or not. Surely the first remit of any government is to protect its people.
Totally correct. I mean, look, he's really damaged the relationship with the United States. It remains to be seen where that leads to in time, but that's a deeply unfortunate situation, and it's of his own making. But to your point about HMS Dragon, absolutely right. Look, the Cypriots have always been pleased to have Akrotiri in Cyprus, and one of the reasons is it's been part of their defence as well as ours. And if we leave them in a position where, as you say, the French can get there with an aircraft carrier pretty pronto, but we're going to be well behind in terms of getting that ship in place to protect against incoming drones, you could forgive them for concluding to some degree that we were not stepping up to the plate in providing adequate defence, whilst at the same time the fact that the base is there has been attracting, obviously, incoming assaults from Iran. So deeply unsatisfactory. They've been caught very flat-footed, and it's just a very unsatisfactory situation.
Completely agree. And just one final question. And again, you know, I think he's paralysed by the Parliamentary Labour Party. I think he puts his own personal survival amongst before interest. He was stood in Westminster Hall. You've heard James Price yesterday addressing a Muslim community and saying how proud he was that we had no part in the strikes. My argument is whether you're part of it or not, surely as the Prime Minister you would have been aware of the US building up their fleet, and he should have been on the front foot. He's too busy, is he not, Mel, trying to placate everybody, and he doesn't do right by the United Kingdom. That would be mine. I just love your view on that quickly.
He's not standing up for our national interests across a whole variety of different issues, including, for example, the Chagos Islands. And what I think we're seeing now, Jeremy, is a government that is so chaotic, right? All these scandals swirling around Number 10, Peter Mandelson and all the other things that have been going on. And that control by their backbenchers, you know, the backbench tail wagging the government dog. And if you add all those things up, that's why you end up with a hapless Prime Minister that's unable to deliver for the priorities that this country has, primary of which is the defence of our country and our national security interests.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm afraid it's shocking that he's failing in the way that he is.
May, thank you. Bless you in the barber, bracing the cold, doing the job. We love him. Sir Mel Stride, thank you so much indeed. Of course, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. Always great to have him on the show. 7:30, we're live across the UK. You waking up to the news that Donald Trump sat in the Oval Office yesterday, the 47th President of the United States, and said, "I'm hardly dealing with Churchill when it comes to Starmer. This man takes the great out of Great Britain. He doesn't understand energy, he doesn't understand immigration, and the special relationship is a concern to me." Starmer not bothered, really. He went to a hall in Westminster and basically said to a group of Muslim people there, "Don't worry, we weren't involved," and got a round of applause. Meanwhile, the people on, Cyprus are wondering quite why you're not looked after by your own government. I have never felt such anger in my life amongst an audience. Jez, the footage, this is interesting. David says, the footage you played of Rachel Reeves speaking yesterday showed Starmer sat there with absolutely no reaction at all on his face. Very vacant. I'll tell you why he's vacant, because he's out of his bloody depth, and if you spend your life, and this is my opinion, trying to please ABC, everybody else bites you on the backside. The man needs to go. Mike, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Great show. Just following on from that caller from Dubai, my girlfriend's sister is living in Dubai like that expat. And just yesterday, she was out in the mall in Dubai, and who was sitting there having coffee with his guys? The Crown Prince. That's how safe it was. She sent it on WhatsApp. So all this nonsense on TV and the press putting out, oh, they're all under danger or whatever, it's nonsense. Dubai is in perfectly good condition, and they're out doing their thing, going shopping, going to work as if it's, a normal day. Like how Britain during the Blitz just got up and got on with it. You know what I mean? And that's the grit that this country has lost. And I fear for this country because the right's been completely split to the Greens. So people need to really reunite and get rid of this awful government.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:33. An amazing lineup on The Breakfast Show this morning. Still to come, former Cabinet Minister Michael Gove. A first ever interview on this show. I think he hasn't given an interview since his defection from the Tories to Labour. Nadeem Zahawi, who is a person who attracts interest. The amazing Maggie Oliver in the studio. The woman who has whistleblown on the grooming gangs is demanding an inquiry and is taking the government to court. I've got former Tory party leader Ian Duncan Smith. I've got Dan Hodges from the Mail, Isabel Oakeshott, and this will wind you up a bit, Dame Emily Thornberry before 8 o'clock. But we say a very good morning to Mark. Good morning, Mark.
I think I called up on Monday and said that Keir Starmer was pandering to the Muslim vote. And as we can see now, the hero of the world, Donald Trump, has called out exactly the same thing. Like I said on Monday, we need to just call this out. That guy and that government is basically the enemy of this state. He's the enemy of the English people, and they have to go. One way or another, they have to go. Great show as always, mate.
Thank you very much. Bruce in Lincolnshire. Jez, it's a dark day, this, with all that Trump's got on his plate, that he takes the time to rightly call us out. As a British person, you want to stand up for our leader when he gets called no Churchill, but I can't defend Starmer. He is a disgrace, an utter disgrace. Crawl under your stone, Starmer. Call a general election. Do the one thing you can do to help this country. I genuinely, says Bruce in Lincolnshire, hate what he's done to the UK. He only has one objective, and it seems to me that is to stab us Brits in the back. Joey from Paddingham. I don't know where that is. Paddingham? I don't know. He says, morning, Jez. Perhaps I'm just a thick alarm clock Brit, but after listening to Rachel from Accounts, I must genuinely be living on a different planet. Chris in Surrey, good morning. So much response, so much anger out there. Trump is spot on with his comments. God knows what is going on with Starmer. He's scared stiff of upsetting the Muslim vote. The rest of us just don't seem to matter. I believe that the Chagos deal is another part of Labour's scorched earth policy, as they know their days are numbered. I bet there is a nice little drink in it for him. Let me tell you what I do not... Well, it's not what I know. It's what I can categorically tell you. There is no way on God's earth the Chagos deal is going to happen now after the way he's treated America. Baz in West Brom, if the King doesn't dissolve this government, he will go down in history like Emperor Nero, fiddling while Great Britain burns. I got thrown out of maths once. Genuinely true story. I think I was about 15. Mr. Gray was the maths teacher, and he went, Kyle! And I went, what? And he went, Nero fiddled while Rome burnt. Stop scratching your nuts and concentrate on the maths in front of you. Genuine, drop that in. There we go. Right, let's cross. This is brilliant. Listen, by the way, can I salute the team that put this show together? Some of the guests and some of the work has been utterly phenomenal in the last few weeks. Elon Levy is a former Israeli government spokesman. Elon, a very good morning to you.
Hello, good morning, Jeremy.
I just wanted to start perhaps in a slightly different way. Many people will have opinions about the US and Israeli attack the other day. I support it completely. We have a government here who's... I can't even get involved, Elon. It'll drive me nuts. But I was wondering to ask you, from an Israeli government point of view, your own even, the irony to me of how many in the Muslim community have talked of the desire for the destruction of the Jewish community. That's a fact. That's out there. We know that to be true. It's slightly ironic to me, then, that Israel is 50% responsible, as of 4 days ago, of potentially freeing millions of Muslims from appalling oppression under an Iranian regime. I mean, that's not lost on me. Is it lost on you?
Right. This is the irony of the US-Israeli coalition's attacks on the Iranian regime. The further away you get from Iran, the more bitter people seem to be about the whole thing. On the streets of Iran, people are celebrating that Israel killed the tyrant, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. For weeks, Iranians were taking to the streets saying death to the dictator. And Israel said, okay, well, if you ask so nicely, here you go. Across the Middle East, people are happy that Khamenei is dead. He exported terrorism and violence and chaos throughout the region. And yet it seems that in Britain, the government can't even bring itself to say, good job, thank you for taking out that horrible man. Israel wants a future of peace for the free and democratic Iran. The Israeli people have nothing but respect and admiration for the Iranian people, their rich heritage. They despise the regime. And I think now it's obvious that Israel and the Iranian people are on the same side. The West should pick
and let's point out what I always say, because I'm incredibly outspoken, Elon, on this. I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today. For me, any form of racism is abhorrent, but I fail to understand to the point of derision why, in this world, anti-Semitism is not laid at the same door as racism. It's disgusting and it's wrong. The Israelis are the... Let's get this right about the Middle East. It's the only democratically elected government. Should we just nail that for everybody? And about this man who's been killed, I've said it repeatedly for 96 hours. For every person who knows somebody or has been involved in a terror attack on any street in any country in any part of the world for the last however many years, Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, that came from the mad mullahs of Tehran, and I think we should be grateful for anything that happens. What I wanted to ask you, though, my friend, because this is a concern for everybody, what next? I'm not saying America has a history, but we know, don't we, looking back, that in various instances they've been involved with allies or on their own. They do what they do and then they're out. What do we, not what we hope, what do we think is going to happen to Iran? Will there be democracy? I mean, his son overnight, Muttaba, I think his name, has been named as the new supreme leader. Will it be more of the same, or do you believe that the destruction and the change that is coming will bring them to the table and change the way they think? Many feel not.
First of all, you're absolutely right that Ayatollah Khamenei was a man whose hands were covered in blood, not just in the Middle East. I mean, Prime Minister Starmer said that the Iranian regime was behind no fewer than 20 potentially lethal attacks on British soil last year. I mean, it was a very impressive
Still
speech
do nothing, Starmer. Well done.
A very impressive speech where he went through the Iranian regime's crimes, only to end with the crescendo, and I promise we have absolutely nothing to do with the attack on this regime. But look, Israel and the US, this coalition have a very clear goal, and that is to neutralize the threat of Iranian aggression. It's to get rid of Iran's ballistic missiles, its instruments of regime oppression, its ability to produce nuclear weapons, so that it can no longer threaten the region. And Israel and the US hope that as a byproduct of kneecapping this regime, the Iranian people will have a chance to rise up and claim their freedom. Because they've tried so many times before. The Iranian people have tried to throw off this regime so many times. And just last month, the regime slaughtered tens of thousands of them in the street. The only reason they failed every time is that the regime had a monopoly of violence and could mow people down in the street. So Israel is, today announced it bombed the Basij headquarters, the organization responsible for slaughtering those protesters. And when we're done going through the ballistic missile and nuclear program, the Iranian people will have a fair shot of rising up and claiming their freedom. But that is for them and them alone to decide.
I'd like your view, if I can, and you speak such sense. Great to have you on. Our Prime Minister has already incurred your wrath, and it would be remiss of me to say that there is not, massive anger. I don't know if you caught what Trump said. He was quoted as saying, "I'm hardly dealing with Churchill." The French sent a naval aircraft carrier because we had a missile fired at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, and still our Prime Minister didn't, until much later in the day, decide to send a boat that'll take 2 weeks. Do you agree with Donald Trump's summing up of the United Kingdom right now?
Look, Britain is old enough to make its own decisions, but I'll say this. Britain seems to be in deep denial that the Iranian regime attacked Britain, not just an RAF base, sovereign British territory. And Britain's enemies are watching to see how Britain will respond. Will Britain brush this under the rug, pretend it never happened, say, well, RAF Akrotiri doesn't really count as Britain, or will it defend its sovereign interests? Because if Britain does nothing, then what's next? Will there be an attack on Gibraltar or Bermuda or the Channel Islands, slowly shrinking in around Britain because, well, that doesn't count and that doesn't count and that doesn't count? The lesson that Israelis have learned after years of being surrounded by a ring of fire of Iranian proxy armies is you can't let them get away with minor provocations, because when they keep pushing the boundaries to see what they can get away with, you discover that they can get away with too much. So I think Britain needs to take a much firmer stance against the Iranian regime, even if it doesn't want to take action by itself, which is completely understandable and legitimate. The least it can do is say, we firmly back the United States and Israel in doing our dirty work for us. Because that's exactly what the US-Israeli coalition is doing. If Britain says, well, it is legal to go after the Iranian ballistic missiles after all, it seems rather odd that they're hiding behind the United States and Israel doing that work for them as we're keeping the whole Arab world and the whole region safe. So at least some rhetorical support from the United Kingdom would be appreciated, given that the US coalition, US-Israeli coalition here is saving the world from a nuclear Iran.
And what's really interesting is in your words, if you strip them down, and I'm nodding because I agree with it, is this sort of, I mean, this hiding in this country under this bloody government behind international law. At the very least, as you said, the first thing I would have done, and you made the point and I'll make the point, he doesn't have to be there in the first wave, he can say that. But why don't you prescribe the IRG, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, as a terrorist organisation? Why don't you throw Iranian diplomats out of this country on their backsides within a heartbeat? Why don't you do something about sanctions? As you said, come out and stand with your allies. Just for you to finish, what is...
I think it's a question you should pose to a minister in His Majesty's government. Because I'm baffled.
Every single day, we are all baffled. One final question very quickly. What's the end game in your mind, Elon?
Israel wants to eliminate once and for all the threat of Iranian aggression. We have been putting up for too long with a regime that has poured billions into its vision of destroying this country. October 7th has backfired spectacularly in the face of the Iranian regime. Israeli planes now control the skies of Tehran, and we are systematically destroying that regime's ability to wage war and hoping that creates a window of opportunity for the Iranian people to create a free Iran that will be at peace with its neighbours.
Mate, it's great to have you on. We really appreciate your time as ever. Excellent. Elon Levy, former Israeli government spokesman. This is Talk Breakfast, 7:45.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 13 minutes to 8. We're live across the United Kingdom. It's Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock break. Your response this morning: I've never, ever sensed or felt such anger. 0344 499 1000 for your phone calls and for those voice notes to Christian. Also your text, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. This is a lady, my next guest, who divides opinion a bit like I do. I haven't spoken to her for ages. She's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. She's a Labour MP, Dame Emily Thornberry. It's been too long. How are you?
Good morning.
Where have you been? What have you been doing? What's going on?
I'm chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and there's an awful lot of work going on, Jeremy. That's what's been keeping me busy.
Of course, I want to talk to you as your role as chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. and we'll talk also about what's going on in the world. But let's start with that. You head a committee that has criticised Sir Keir Starmer for his Brexit reset. We've talked on this show recently about, you know, the giving away of potentially Gibraltar and his desire to get closer to the EU, despite the fact that the British people voted not to. What's your take on this, Emily?
Where did you get this, that we've given away Gibraltar? We haven't given away Gibraltar.
It's in the pipeline, isn't it?
No, it's not in the pipeline. There's a Gibraltar agreement, which is really good. And the Gibraltar First Minister has been telling me over the last year that he's going to get this deal. Nobody really believed that he'd be able to negotiate something as good as this, but it's absolutely fine.
What is? Tell me about the Gibraltar deal then, because to many people listening and watching, they will think this is just another piece of land being given away like the Chagos Islands for money that we could well spend on things that matter.
Oh, Jeremy, if you're going to be like this, I'm not going to be able to answer your questions faster than you're asking them. So Gibraltar. So the deal is that they have had to. What they're doing is they're doing something whereby the border is kind of fluid. It means that people coming in who work in Gibraltar, who come from Spain, are not going to get stopped on the border and won't be, because you know, if they enforce the rules at the moment, then all the people who work on the rock aren't actually able to get in and work on it. Right. And there are massive great queues there. Tourists can't get in. People can't get out. You know, it will basically cripple Gibraltar. So there needs to be a better border. And essentially, the Gibraltar our First Minister in Gibraltar and the Spanish Prime Minister have come to an agreement whereby it's going to be much more fluid. People going to Gibraltar may remember, if you come out of the airport, there's at the moment you can either go one way and everything's fine, or you go the other way and you're going to walk down a corridor and suddenly it stops. Because that was the bit where you were supposed to be able to get into Spain. You couldn't, and now we've also got an agreement where you can come off the plane and you can go into Spain. You have to get your bag checked and you have to go through security again. You know, it's a bit like getting on the train to go to France, but at least you can do it now, which you weren't able to do. So it strengthens Gibraltar hugely. And then there's been a series of deals in relation to tax and et cetera, et cetera. But listen, as far as the people on the rock are concerned, they're very happy. So it has not been given away. They remain British. It remains British. Nobody ever said it was going to be given away. Do you want me to talk about the Chagos Islands as well?
Well, slow down now, because I can't answer if you throw so many questions at me. You're
the one who made it.
Nah, listen, we're sparring. We're sparring. No, you've got to understand. So the Chagos, which we'll bring back, this would be the other side of the coin. I understand that there are people in the government, probably led by your Prime Minister, who, with Herma, you know, international law and apologising for everything that's gone in the past. But my question to anybody concerned with Labour would be this, on a serious note. It's not even about giving away a piece of land. What I'm uncomfortable with is, despite the fact that the Chancellor says yesterday things are getting better, Emily, which patently for working men and women across Britain they aren't, how do you justify spending in total £35 billion, giving away and then leasing back a piece of land that's a military base, when we're paying £12 billion a month on interest on debts we can't afford because we've got this huge and ever-increasing welfare bill?
I'm not sure about those numbers, but the principle is that we were approached by the Americans some years ago, because they share the base with us, or we let them use the base. And they were really concerned that we were going to lose control of the Chagos Islands, and particularly that base, because the legal reasons for us having it, frankly, didn't really stand up. And we're worried that we were going to end up being taken to an international court. And so, you know, it was essentially on their initiative, as I understand it, that we started negotiating giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius and then leasing it back so that we could secure the use of the base.
I have to jump in, but what the people that are listening want you to answer this if you can, and I really appreciate you being on, right? If you are really struggling and you hear your government increasing taxes and services are struggling, and you hear that they're going to spend billions on leasing back a bit of land, and this is a fact, this is made up, the Mauritian people will be tax-free as a society for 12 to 18 months. This has been said by the government. How do you expect hard-working alarm clock Brits to respond to that?
it's really important that we continue to use the Chagos Islands. They're basically islands right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and they the Indian Ocean, and they're right in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and they are a fantastic listening post. I mean, the amount of information we get as a result of that.
Why give money?
We are, but if we had just sort of said, these are ours, we're not giving them to anybody, we would have, it's thought, got taken to the cleaners in the courts, and we would have had to hand them over. So the way to do it was to lease them, to give them to Mauritius and then lease it back so that we could use the base. And at the time, and until recently, the Americans have been really keen for us to do that because they want to have secure footings on the Chagos Islands along with us because the base is so important. I mean, one of the reasons, right, that Donald Trump has done one in the last few weeks is because, you know, he, as I understand it, he approached us to say, "Can I use the Chagos Islands if I was to attack Iran?" and was told no. And it's because it's so important that he got so cross.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Sorry, quick question for you. As a Labour MP, and I'm not going to... I mean, you've had your moments with Starmer. Two very quick questions. Are you embarrassed by the United Kingdom's slow response to defending its people on our RAF base in Cyprus?
No, I'm not. I think that it was hit by a drone. It was fortunate. It's fortunate that that nothing happened. I appreciate that, but I think that, you know, we're now sending a ship out. I don't think that was. I mean, that's not. I mean, there are defensive things on the ship, but there's also been. We did hit down 2 drones that also attacked Cyprus. So 1 out of 3 did get through. It's very unfortunate. The best way to defend our people, I think, is for this war in Iran to stop as quickly as possible.
But how do you stop? By your own defence secretary very quickly admitted the other day that there were 20 terror plots to kill Brits on the streets of London. Iran and the mad mullahs have financed terrorism for years.
A lot of work has been done on this, and you'll see that there are a large number of trials coming of people there have been attempts to kill people on the streets of Britain, and there has been, by the Iranians, attempts to intimidate and kill members of the opposition who have been living in London because it's safer to live in London than many other cities in Europe. But we have been protecting them, and as I say, a large number of these plots have been foiled. It's appalling what's been going on. But look, I don't believe that this attack on Iran was defensive. I think it's right for Britain not to be involved. I think it wasn't in Britain's interest. I think that there hasn't been a plan, and I don't think that it was within the law.
Just final question, and I really appreciate it. I mean, law, but do you believe that Keir Starmer...
Well, Britain's interest, actually.
Well, I think it's a movable feast, international law. We'll agree to disagree. I think that your government hides behind it. But do you think that Keir Starmer...
You can only attack someone if you're defending yourself.
But you can't then... I don't want to argue, but then you can't tell me that the Iranians that want to bomb people and kill people on the streets of Britain and countries across the world financed by that madman, they don't give a toss about international law. Quick question, do you think that Keir Starmer's doing a good job, Emily?
I think that on this he's doing a good job. I think he's right to be doing this. I think that I'm proud of the stance that he's taken. I think it's the first time that a British Prime Minister has said no to an American President on an issue of war since Vietnam. And I think it's the right time to say no. And
listen, we really, and I mean this, I would love to have more time. It is great to have you back on. We appreciate your time. Dame Emily Thornberry there on Talk Breakfast.
no doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interests stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous energy policy, preceding this government, frankly, and all the knock-on effects to that for our economy are catastrophic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. A very good morning. It's Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. If, like me, you're slightly gobsmacked by what Dame Emily Thornberry said, we'll hear from you, please. 0344 499 1000. Before the break, she was good enough to come on. When asked about the Chagos Islands, she said, well, we only leased it and paid $35 billion because we were worried we might have faced a legal challenge under international law. Well, let me tell you something here and now, because I ran out of time with her. That deal ain't happening after the last few days. And I asked her if she thought that Keir Starmer was doing a good job. She said, I think he's doing a great job because he's the first Prime Minister since Vietnam to put his foot down and say no to the Americans. Now, I woke up this morning, I read the stuff. I've never been more apoplectic in my life, as I think you guys are. It's unbelievable. Let's just lay out very quickly. Donald Trump yesterday tore a second one out of Keir Starmer. He said he was removing the great out of Great Britain. He said it's hardly Churchill. I mean, the whole day started with that. Just have a listen to a man who seems to understand more about the United Kingdom from the incumbent in number 10. Go, Donald.
But this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? They ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. The UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration is, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK, you have a terrible mayor of London, terrible. He's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back.
So for me and millions of people, that is an absolutely great view of what's going on in this country. Now, yesterday, and we've been saying it all morning, but people tune in and out, it transpired that a drone missile had been fired from Iran and had headed to Cyprus, where it landed very close to the RAF base at Akrotiri. Now, I believe, and many millions also share this, that the first rule of a government is to protect its people. So pathetic are we in a situation right now, and this is for me the thing that has wound so many of us up, is that the French, ladies and gentlemen, managed to send an aircraft carrier towards Cyprus before any of this to protect its people and presumably ours, because our Prime Minister so busy dragging his feet that it was only, begrudgingly last evening that he agreed to send one ship, HMS Dragon, that probably will take 2 weeks to get there, and the cynics amongst us might think might break down. Like me, many of you are appalled, and I'm just going to add this caveat before we bring Sir Ian Duncan-Smith on, who I'm delighted to have on the show this morning. Here's the next bit. Whilst the world is dealing with the fallout of Iran, whether you agree that we should have been there first or stood up for our allies or whatever, our Prime Minister stands up in Westminster Hall yesterday and talks to a group of Muslim people, this is a fact, and says he is proud that we were not part of it. And the accusation to Starmer from everybody I've spoken to this morning is, you are so busy playing politics and trying to placate the certain Muslim vote because you're terrified after the by-election in Gorton and Denton that you are letting Great Britain down. This was him last night. Have a listen.
But on Iran, I want to make clear the UK was not involved in the offensive strikes of the US and Israel. And that remains the case.
He got a round of applause. Now, many, like me, think he's not doing a very good job. Emily Thornberry, though, came on the show just now and said, of course we're going to give away the Chagos Islands. We'd have been breaking the international law. Of course Keir Starmer's doing a great job. You lot not very happy. Have a listen.
Morning, Jezza Damon from Wigan. Is Emily Thornberry serious in what she's saying? She has not got the foggiest idea what she is talking about.
Hi, Jenna, mate. Mark from Manchester. I heard you ask that MP, what did she think about Iran shooting rockets at our base in Cyprus and about the British citizens on the base, and she says she wasn't really bothered. What's that all about?
Oh my God. What do they do? Brainwash these bloody Labour MPs when they go into the Houses of Parliament? I have never heard such tosh in my life.
You won't hear Tosh now, the former Conservative Party leader. Sorry to hang him on, but there's so much going on. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Fine, thanks. Yep.
I don't really know where to Actually, let's start with Emily Thornberry. I'm told that it's important in any broadcasting scenario that one tries to give Sir Ian both sides of the coin. I asked her if Keir Starmer was doing a good job, and she said, and I think this is quite dark, actually, she said, I think he's doing a great job because he's the first Prime Minister since the one that was in charge during Vietnam, she couldn't name them, who has actually stood up to the bloody Americans. This is the same country, our staunchest ally, that has looked after us and NATO for years and years, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith.
Well, not for those on the left of the Labour Party, not for those who are obsessed with this tokenistic human rights nonsense. They are not our greatest ally. In fact, they loathe them, they dislike them. And so we're stuck here on 2 or 3 points. First of all, Emily Thornberry is fundamentally wrong on what she says about the Chagos Islands. Legally, utterly wrong. There is no international law problem for us keeping the Chagos Islands. Everything that they've said, she says, about them facing a court case is impossible because we were opted out at the first initial organisation of the ICC, International Criminal Court. The UK opted out all its relationships in the Commonwealth, between the Commonwealth nations and the UK. So they have no jurisdiction over the Chagos Islands and our arrangements with Mauritius, nor does Mauritius for that matter. And there's nothing they can do about it. All the things they keep saying we'll face problems for are utter rubbish. And therefore, we could easily carry on with the Chagos Islands. By the way, they haven't been given away yet, because that bill has not made its way to the Lords, and I don't believe it ever will. If they don't do this, they'll the final coffin of any relation with the United States. So, all over the place. There's actually a couple of points, correct, not you, but them. First of all, it's the biggest mistake that Starmer has made, because and therefore we are out with this. We're in international law, but we're not party to this. Then on Sunday, he came out and said he was going to allow the Americans to use the bases because our allies in the Gulf had been struck. And it turns out that we had a drone, as you mentioned earlier on, attacking the Solomon bases. A point I made to him was very simple. I said, you are now in the strikes. The statement you make that we are out with it is nonsense, because by agreeing for the Americans to use the base, it means the British are now party to that strike. And therefore, we might as well use the RAF and involve them, because we are in there as far as international law is concerned, because that allows you to defend your territory. So we've now taken that decision. So what he told the Labour Party is that they've saved us by keeping us out. We are not out anymore. We are in, and that took place over 4 days. The problem is we denied the Americans for 3 days, and now we're saying you can have it. That is not the act of an ally and a friend that knows where it's going. He's in a total shambolic mess, and they are trying to defend the indefensible. Yes, we should have allowed them to use air bases from day one, because that is what allies do.
Listen, I'm sitting nodding because you sound statesmanlike, and then I listen to that man, and I've got to ask you so much. Donald Trump, love him or loathe him, and as an ex-serviceman, he'll agree with me. I loathed what he said about our forces before, and he had to apologise. But he's absolutely right about Starmer, the great out of Great Britain. Whether I agree with much or all or none of what Donald Trump says, what he managed to do in that minute-long clip, Ian, was tell us exactly what's wrong with this country. We've got a Prime Minister who is in bed with every human rights organisation and hides everything behind this movable feast called international law. We've got a Prime Minister who seemingly isn't aware of what's going on in the country. I mean, for me, and I'm 60, and you will be, I believe, as strong as this, maybe you won't. I was with my father-in-law yesterday. He was apoplectic. He's 80. He's never been particularly keen on the French, but he went, for the French, he said. the fence-sitters to send a boat before we've even contemplated sending. And even when we do, so decimated are our defence systems that we send some rickety old boat that might get there in 3 weeks is an absolute embarrassment on the international stage. And yet Starmer is more busy standing in Westminster Hall talking to Muslims saying, I'm proud we're not part of it. That, to me, is the biggest disaster from yesterday. Internationally, we look ridiculous, and it is absolutely fair, Ian, to accuse him of putting his own political survival over the interests of the United Kingdom, isn't it?
Well, it is. We actually have a larger navy than any other European nation. And the reality is that we're not using it. So I ask myself this other question. Why haven't we pre-positioned assets in the area to defend our neighbours and our friends and ourselves? And I think the answer lies, I'm afraid, in the government's mismanagement of the economy. I am told that the Defence Department has, that the Navy, the Army and the Air Force have been told that they have to save, I think, in the order of £2.6 billion in this final bit of the financial year because the Chancellor is hammering the hell out of them. So what have they ordered? All the ships in port, not doing anything. No big aircraft flights or tests going on. In other words, the reason we're caught napping here is because the government has run out of money to give the armed forces and demanding that they make swinging savings to their operational budget. That's why we don't have ships in the Mediterranean. We used to have a Gulf patrol. That's not happening at the moment. The aircraft carriers are not anywhere, and our aircraft are not literally in any position to do very much.
But we can afford to spend 35 billion allegedly giving away the Chagos Islands. We can afford to increase people's tax. We can't cut anything from a benefits bill, despite that going out of control. And they can't do anything about borders with people coming in, taking from, sorry to use the phrase, the indigenous population. It's beyond, to many, Ian, contacting the show this morning, this is beyond anger. There's palpable fury about the way this government is selling its own people at home and abroad down the river. Real anger, my friend, real anger.
Yeah, well, interestingly, you then ask yourself the question, why didn't he respond using the cover of international law at the beginning?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that is because had he done so, it would have exposed the fact that we have no assets of any worth in that area because they have frozen the budgets and demanded cuts. That would have come out, and it should come out now, and they need to answer this question. Why haven't we pre-positioned assets, even as a defensive issue, against possible strikes?
He knew the Americans were building up their fleet in the Gulf.
Yeah,
he absolutely knew
it was
that.
telegraphed.
Yeah.
It's completely telegraphed. And in the past, we've always pre-positioned so that we can defend those areas that are ours. And this is the problem that we face. When you run your government like this bunch of minnows, what you end up doing is you cut all the wrong things. We need extra money in defence. They say they're spending extra money. They are not at the moment. And the reality is the way they do it, it's going to take a generation before we get any more significant money going in. The problem is the armed forces are being betrayed by them. And the reality is the British people ultimately are betrayed by them because the armed forces are there to defend the British people and our neighbours and friends and assets. And we don't do that. So now we have to rely on the French, for goodness sake,
I mean,
to
honestly,
run to our aid. It's astonishing, it's an embarrassment, and it's a matter of shame, I think, for, sadly, for this great country that was once the greatest ally of the United States. And I have a very simple phrase, and it may annoy some, but I'm going to say it. When Britain and America are together, the world is a safer place. Why? Because we are able to exercise influence with the Americans when we stand with them. And when we're not with them, then sometimes those operations aren't as good. And I think the reality is the Americans know that. We share intelligence. They have the highest respect for our armed forces when they're allowed to do what they're supposed to do. But in the meantime, now this has been a shock to them that the UK simply isn't prepared to take a part. And the reason for that is, thank God, we know that this economy is in such a poor state now under this government taxing everybody that nothing can move in the military establishment because we're saving money.
Simon says a very nice thing about you in Wigan. He wishes that you were the leader of the Tory party right now. You can appear on this show and sound... No, I'm being serious. You can sound statesmanlike and presidential, but here's the thing. Just as a politician with all your experience, and I'm not asking to make it personal, but what do you... We've listened so much about Starmer. His Chancellor yesterday stood up and said everything was fine. It isn't. Internationally, we're humiliated. At home, domestically, people's lives, the shop, petrol, gas, everything's going through the roof. People feel very strongly that they're put at the back of the queue. What's your take out on this man after 18 months? Is he the worst Prime Minister we've ever had in the history of the United Kingdom?
Well, I think he's got to where he is. What do they say? Is a man that's risen without trace. He seems to believe in nothing and in everything at the same time. And his whole background has been in the pursuit of his own power at the end of the day, his own position. And that's why you can see him flitting between the extreme left and then what he might call moderation. After all, he served very loyally under Jeremy Corbyn, when Jeremy Corbyn was, is right out on the left, hates the armed forces, doesn't want to take any action, dislikes America, all that sort of stuff that they went through. He was there. And then all of a sudden he reinvents himself when Corbyn stumbles and falls as a moderate. But we know very well this is also the same man who pursued for no money, for gratis, he pursued Afghan and Iraqi British veterans who fought for their country in great difficulty, who lost colleagues. They were pursued through the courts on the back of information that a discredited man called Phil Shiner, who is now, who's no longer a lawyer, no longer allowed to be a lawyer, and a 2-year suspended prison sentence, I understand. They worked with this discredited man to prosecute those people. That's a shameful act on anyone's part. I say that as an ex-soldier. It is utterly shameful. And now they're going to reverse what we did when we were in government over Northern Ireland, so that veterans, I'm one of those, could be pursued through the courts relentlessly. Why? What did they do? They were sent to a difficult situation in the UK to defend those peaceful people that operated in places like Belfast.
It's appalling. It's appalling how you dress up. And I would never, out of total respect for you, and I mean that, I'm so honoured when you come on, I would never want to put words into your mouth, but I've had one word thrown at me hundreds of times this morning. Do you think Keir Starmer's a traitor to this country?
I don't know what the word traitor means in his case. I tell you this much, though. I think he's a person who simply shifts his opinion and changes what he does like a chameleon the whole time. I don't really think he quite understands what it is to be a patriot or to be loyal or to be strong in defense of your country. I think that's his problem. I think he's often on show to all those people on the left in the hope that he can hold their votes. And I have to tell you, that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Complete common sense, an absolute pleasure. Thank you as ever, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, former Conservative Party leader, 8:21. We're live across the UK. Talk Breakfast is on 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Ollie, hold your horses. Charlie and George, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Charlie and George on our way to work, paying our taxes, doing everything that we're supposed to do. Just thinking about Keir Starmer standing on the steps of Downing Street the day that he was elected, when he stared into the camera and he said, country first, party second. And what he done the other day was party first, sectarian politics. This is what it's all about, and it's only ever going to get worse.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:25, and if you're a regular to the show, you know I've got to take 30 seconds now because Oliver William, Robin Kyle, won't go into school until his dad says good morning. Morning, little man. Have a good one, work hard, and Rissiru and your lovely mum. Have a great day. Right, listen, 0344 499 1000 in a tick. Former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Nadeem Zahawi, in a first interview with us and anywhere since his defection. Emily Thornberry has got right on your bits, mine as well. Kenny in Perthshire. Thornberry may have had her fallouts with Starmer, but this interview just shows her up to be just another Labour MP who is blinkered and out of touch. Hello to Jane. Morning, Jez. Just listening to Thornberry. What absolute rubbish she's talking about Gibraltar. I lived in Spain for 10 years and frequently went over the border. The only times there were queues was when the Spanish government were in trouble with their people, so they used to flex their muscles. Chagos Islands, who cares about being taken to the cleaners by international lawyers? I utterly despair. Good morning to Steve. Chagos, so it's all about the Americans' fault, is it? Thornberry talks as if we're kids. I was a chef for years. If I know that an international court only had recommendations, then she as an MP should do as well before the likes of me. She really didn't give a satisfactory answer about closing the Iranian embassy. She says she's proud of Starmer. That tells me everything I don't want to know about Emily Thornberry. Simon in Wigan. Emily Thornberry is the perfect example of how Labour is not the party of working people, aloof, detached from society, lacking empathy and happy to continue the Labour's policy of gaslighting the British public. Oh my God, people are so angry. Jez, says David in Manchester, enough is enough. All alarm clock Brits should now coordinate together and call a general strike. Liam in Liverpool. Emily Thornberry, does 20 terror plots not justify defending your country and its people, or am I missing something? I feel like we're the only goddamn country that hides behind the movable feast that is international law. Can I just say about Ian Duncan Smith as well? This is across the political divide. Just let me ask you this, watching and listening. Ian Duncan Smith, former Tory party leader, common sense, Prime Ministerial even, just presence, ex-military man, Emily Thornberry, ideology. Who do we want in the world representing us? So much going on. 0344 499 1000. Now, delighted to welcome our next guest, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, and author of The Boy from Baghdad, My Journey to Westminster. Delighted to welcome, first interview since he defected to Reform, Nadeem Zahawi. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm good. I had you. I'm going to call him Lackey because he's one of my best friends. We had JP on earlier, your advisor. He said I would enjoy this. How are things?
He's a great man. James Price is a world-class spad, as they call them in Whitehall.
No, he's a good man. Nadine, there'll be lots of questions. Let's start with Rachel Reeves, because I know, as former Chancellor, that you would have many opinions. And treat me with the contempt that I deserve, because I obviously missed the point, because I thought that the way one created growth in an economy, I said this to Mel Stride earlier, is to encourage small businesses to grow and employ people and make money, and that money filters down and everybody benefits. I thought that you make a good economy by lowering taxation and making it easier and better for people to want to be part of something. Now, I don't know whether she's delusional, because the people that contact this show will say our taxes are higher, my business is failing because of NI increases or workers' rights, everything's more expensive, and yet I'm going to play you a clip. I don't know if you were in the Commons yesterday. This is Rachel from Accounts' idea of what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy this clip or not, seeing how you might.
Mr. Speaker, if you import failed Tory politicians, you get failed Tory policies too. Labour and only Labour have the right economic plan for our country.
I'll let you answer that, Nadeem Zahawi, because she says, and I quote, living standards are up.
Well, she's living in cloud cuckoo land, and you asked me the question, what do I think drives Rachel Reeves? I think it's ideology, sadly. You look at what she's done on national insurance. The OBR themselves, the Office of Budget Responsibility, said yesterday that actually her NI increases are directly responsible for the increase in unemployment. unemployment will hit something like 1.9 million people. 1 million of those are young people who are not in education, employment, or or training. So the difficulty for Rachel is this government is deeply ideological. She is very much part of the problem. You look at what they've done, you mentioned it as well, on the employment rights bill. I call it an unemployment rights bill. It's actually driving young people out of the labour market rather than in the labour market. Growth is anemic. Now, people will say, oh, well, the rest of Europe is the same. But look at America. America's growing at 4+%, right? This is a mature economy. We should be much more ambitious about growth in the UK. We should be attracting people to come and invest in the UK. We're doing the opposite. We're driving people out of the country. And I'm not just talking about the non-doms and the billionaires, right? I'm talking about young talent. You look at, again, at the numbers on immigration. The government was boasting yesterday that actually overall immigration will come down year on year about 60,000. The reduction is Brits leaving the UK. Immigration will continue to go up, by the way, because there's hundreds of thousands still coming in, but 60,000 are leaving. Talented Brits are choosing to live in other countries, in Portugal and in Italy and in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and elsewhere around the world. Why? Because they feel that the tax burden is too high. The tax burden will be 38%. That's sort of, it hasn't been that high since after the war.
Yeah.
It's insane where we're heading to in terms of lack of ambition, lack of growth in the economy. And yet she sits there saying, oh, well, people are going to be £1,000 better off. How are they going to be better off? Inflation is still higher than when she came into office, double what she was inherited from the last Conservative government. It's a very, very messy, negative place to be in at the moment.
It's really interesting for me because I'm 60. I know I don't look it. I'll say that for you. But the thing is that I never understood. Well, I did understand. And when you're doing an election coverage, you have to be balanced. Every Labour government that's been in power since I grew up, Liam Byrne, that famous letter, there's no money left, has always done, in simple terms, promised too many people, basically in the unions, too much money. They've then given those pay rises. Inflation's either gone through the roof or they've borrowed too much money and the same things happen. And basically we're always skint. Now, there was much about the Tory party at the end that infuriated me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't vote for the Tory party. And people listening to this know that, right? Because I think they moved too far to the centre. And I think they lost the ear of the British public because they didn't do things they promised in basic terms. But the economy, even when Sunak left, the economy and our standing in the G8, G7, whatever it is now, I don't know, was far better than it is. I don't believe these people have, I mean, I agree with you about ideology. I don't believe they have the nous. And when I hear her say, still 18 months down the line, a bit like him, the Tories this and the Tories that, the public are past that. The Tories aren't going to be listened to for 10 years, in my humble opinion. People are forgiving, but it'll take a while. This is here and now. If we move it from the economy to what started this show this morning, Nadeem, and I've never known anger like it on the phones today, genuinely. I mean, the front of the Mail sums it up nicely. A Prime Minister who Trump mocks as no church and a Navy stranded at the port. There might be many things I disagree with Donald Trump on, but he's absolutely right. We look completely neutered internationally. We're neutered. I mean, at home and abroad. We're in the worst place, aren't we?
In a terrible place. It's much worse than that because it's when you become irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, I've over the past 4 or 5 days been talking to foreign ministers in other countries, and what they say to me is they're not even annoyed or upset. They just think we're an irrelevance, and that's a terrible place for our great country to be in. You know, our influence, our historic influence in the Middle East is something to be proud of, in my view. And actually, we should have been building on that. You know, this operation has been going for weeks now, yet we have just completely turned a blind eye to it. Let me put it in perspective for you, right? Steve Witkoff, the chief negotiator for the US government, said yesterday that the Iranian negotiators came to the first meeting and they said that they have 460 kilograms of uranium at 60% enrichment. Now, to get to weapons grade, which is 90%, would take about a week to 10 days. So they were admitting that they'd fooled the Obama administration, they'd fooled the previous conservative administrations with a JCPOA, and that they've already got 460 kilograms. That's 11 nuclear warheads. That was their starting position. They're saying, look, we've already got this. We're willing to sort of, talk about how we deal with that. But of course, they were not serious, as we have found out. We've been standing just, as bystanders, pretending that this is nothing to do with it. Now, imagine a world where the US hadn't moved against this stockpile, right? And in 2 weeks' time, the Iranian Ayatollah announces that he has 11 nuclear weapons. How would we feel at home? How safe would the British public feel if Iran was a nuclear country? The way it's behaved against its regional neighbors, who, by the way, didn't take part in this campaign, refused to allow the airspace to be used for this campaign, refused to allow any bases to be used in this campaign, yet they've all been attacked. The UAE has taken more missiles than the whole of the Gulf put together, yet they literally were the ones trying to make sure that the negotiations move in a positive direction.
I mean, can I jump in for a reason? On a purely personal level, going back to my father-in-law, the embarrassment that I feel at 60 years of age that the fence-sitting French were there quicker than us. I mean, I will criticise past Tory governments and governments way back for cutting defence. I think it's the biggest mistake ever. I find it unbelievably embarrassing that an island like us that is supposed to have the word great in it is so defenceless. But even so, to begrudgingly only send one ship 10 hours after the French are already there. What does that say, Nadeem, about us internationally? It says so little.
Exactly. The French squadron, within hours in the UAE, was flying, protecting the UAE, flying in tandem with the UAE Air Force and coordinating the defence of the Middle East, whereas we just were not even close to being at the table. Look, all you have to look at, Jeremy, is the spring statement, right? Welfare is going to rise to 333 billion, right? Rising all the way to 407 billion. The deficit today is 138 billion. Do you know how much of that goes to debt servicing? 112 billion of that goes just to service the debt.
So we're paying 112 billion in interest on a debt we can't afford to pay off, and yet we're going to give away the Chagos Islands and 35 billion. This is alarm clock Britain speak here, right? 35 billion for the Mauritians to pay no tax for 12 months. Try explaining that to people who get up at 4 o'clock. Doesn't wash, Nadeem. Doesn't wash anymore. It's unbelievable.
It's beyond insanity. It's self-harm. When you look at the defence budget is 62 billion, what could you do with that additional 35 billion that we're just giving away for no reason? No, in fact, worse than that, we're giving it away and giving away our security and our standing in the world. And our strategic standing in the world is being given away and put at risk, and we're paying.
I asked Ian Duncan Smith, a man I admire greatly, the question I'm going to ask you. People are loath, politicians, to use certain words. I can get away with it, I suppose. The one word that's come out of so many people who have contacted the show this morning about Starmer is he a traitor? Is he?
Look, I think he's got to examine his conscience. He's got to look in the mirror in the morning and think, what the Green Party and Zach Polanski and Muhsin Ali, his Iranian regime sympathising deputy in the Green Party, have done is they've come out of the left flank of Labour and have squeezed Starmer. Now, Starmer either puts country ahead of party, as he promised he would, or, as he's behaving now, he's putting party and the Islamist vote ahead of country. All right? The movement towards sectarian voting and the way that the Labour Party's behaved, Nigel Farage was warning about this 10 years ago, and it's come home to roost that Labour is now stuck in a place where last night he was talking at an iftar evening.
Yeah, he was in Westminster Hall, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was literally, his opening line is how he did not participate in taking out the the lethal threat of nuclear weapons from a terrorist regime.
Got a clap from 100 people, and yet our special, you know, the most important ally that we've got in the world is up in arms. Can I just ask you very, very quickly about that before we let you go? We know you defected to Reform. We're going to speak to you a lot more on the show. But in terms of Gorton and Denton, we covered it. I made the point that Reform got locally 29% what it was getting nationally. I agree with you about this pincer movement to the Greens. I think sectarian voting. There were complaints about family voting as well. Do you, having moved to Reform, fear? There was a poll out yesterday which tells me half of England's nuts, well, a fifth of it. 21% of people now want to vote Greens. And I think we need to give this message out. Apart from giving away our nuclear weapons, leaving NATO, going on a commercial flight, says Zach Polanski, to Russia to meet Vladimir Putin, he'll shake his hand and give up every nuclear weapon. Apart from legalising crack cocaine and heroin and raising taxes to 70%, do you fear that these people will be taken seriously? Surely not in the long term, Nadeem.
Well, I think, look, people will see them for what they are. They were cynical in Gorton and Denton in weaponising the Islamist vote, nothing to do with environmental issues whatsoever. And I think people will begin to see through that. The good news is I think the silent majority are beginning to understand that the only way we get our country back is to vote Reform. And by the way, you see it in Italy with Meloni. You can very quickly turn a big, oil tanker round with 3 or 4 emblematic policies. You know, we stop the illegal crossings, get rid of illegal migration into our country, sort out our economy. You can very quickly get the wealth creators back in the country, the young talent Brits who will come back immediately to the country, and there'll be a big turnaround. It doesn't take much to do that other than serious determination and putting country ahead of party.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Please do come again. We're meeting, I know, in a couple of weeks, which I'm looking forward to. Nadeem Zahawi, thank you so much indeed for being on Talk Breakfast at 18 minutes to 9. Next, and I'm delighted, she's coming in the studio, the former Manchester Detective Constable Maggie Oliver, who became a whistleblower, thought, sod my career, because she, like so many of us, but she is doing something about it, finds it appalling that the rape, grooming gang, whatever you got, are still at large, and there's never been an international inquiry. She's here today because today she's taking the government to court. Maggie Oliver next on Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:45. Maggie Oliver, and just to tick, Bert, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Bert from Tooting here. Winston Churchill. I've got nothing to offer for blood, toil, tears and sweat. Keir Starmer, I've got nothing to offer.
Couldn't agree with you anymore. Good morning, Jez. I love listening to the show. This is Rachel from Cambridgeshire. This country is going to rack and ruin. Starmer needs to be gone and Labour out. Pauline, as a British citizen, I am utterly ashamed of our government. This was Starmer's chance to show that he's willing to defend the people and values of this country. But no, he showed his true colours and has sided with the Muslim community, and woke left is just for votes. I am genuinely afraid of what happens next on our streets, because this will only end one way. 0344 499 1000 text to 8722. Thornbury said it was only one drone that struck the Cyprus air base. Oh, that's all fine then, isn't it? This is the level of protection that British troops are getting from those at the top of this ridiculous, bloody, useless government. Talk. Two things, says Deb. Sir Ian Duncan Smith should be the leader of the Conservative Party, and I'm happy to call it. Keir Starmer is undoubtedly a traitor. 8:45. There aren't many things that get my blood going as the disgusting, vile grooming gang rape ongoing nightmare, and there is one woman who stuck her head above the parapet, police whistleblower Maggie Oliver. It's the first time we've met, isn't it? I thought we'd met at a nightclub somewhere. You all right?
I wouldn't remember even if I did.
No, I know that. Mate, you know, listen, people say to me, you always wax lyrical about this lady, and I'll tell you why. I think it's the biggest stain on our society. I can't believe that this is... I've told you before, I remember speaking some years ago to a senior ranking police officer from that area who said to me, we've had to tread carefully over the 8 years because we don't really want to upset certain parts of the community. For me, I don't know about you, but no matter about the colour of his skin, if you think it's okay to abuse an 8-year-old girl, then you don't deserve to be in my society.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we get on. But what I'm talking about today is slightly different, although it is part of that as well. And I'd just like to set the scene a little bit because I joined the police, Greater Manchester Police, when I was 42. You know?
Did you?
Yeah. I was getting on a bit even then. I'd been back to university, but I was a mum of 4. Yeah. You know, I believed in child protection, and I was very much a square peg in a round hole when I joined. And I went to Moss Side, I was posted to Moss Side, and it was a baptism of fire. But because I was a woman, you know, middle class, middle-aged, do-gooder, I used to get all the people jobs, including children who were missing from home. And right back then, which was 1997, I was horrified that children in care were being treated as though they were trouble, as though they didn't matter. And this was the police and social services and people in the care homes. So I then went on the grooming gang cases in 2004 and 5 and Rochdale, and I saw them close down because there was a fear of racial unrest. The kids didn't matter. But I've always believed that child protection is the most important thing that we as a country can do. So roll forward, I resigned, as you know, in 2012. I went public, and I'm known for grooming gangs. But in 2015, the government then, which was Conservative, said, we are going to do a once-in-a-generation national inquiry into child protection and safeguarding, and we are going to change this landscape forever. There was a 7-year, £200 million national inquiry. 7,000 victims and survivors gave evidence. 20 recommendations were made. I was a core participant in the grooming gang organised network strand, which was a total whitewash. But there were other strands looking at abuse in the Catholic Church, abuse in the Church of England, Lord Janner, Cyril Smith, all of those things. And at the end of it, we got 20 recommendations. Now, to date, 3.5 years on, none of those recommendations have been implemented. They are sitting on a shelf, and included in those, Jeremy, is they won't prohibit pain, compliance, torture of children in care. They won't regulate staff in care homes. There's still no mandatory recording of ethnicity and culture and religion of abusers. And so this is very much a David and Goliath situation. You know, my little charity, we've had to get funding from 2 individuals to take the government to a judicial review to try and shame them into implementing these recommendations.
Let's just slow this down a minute. I mean, today the Maggie Oliver Foundation, which you set up, and I have no shame in saying this, anybody listening, go online. The Maggie Oliver Foundation is the most worthwhile thing to support, and I mean that. You know, you are taking the British government to court on failure to act on child sexual abuse and exploitation, recommendations that 3.5 years ago, 20 of them. Now, this isn't just at Starmer. No. This is governments going back. The thing I always want to ask you is, and the thing that chills me as a father of 6, and I know you've got kids, is
I've got 4.
This presumably goes either so high or so deep, or is so, I don't know, that almost every part of the establishment has closed the door in your face. Why?
You know what? I don't know. This is deep state. It is, You know, we've got Iran. You know, they can find the money to go and bomb a strange country. But we've got children, you know, a child who lives in care, they don't get care. They're not loved. They don't have affection. They're, you know, and we're trying to argue that they should have equal rights to a child that lives in a home, because at the moment they don't.
And also think about think about what this government are doing with puberty blockers. That's all on kids from care homes.
Absolutely.
With no regard for where they've come from or what they've gone through.
There's all these issues, but we're you know, obviously I'm known for grooming gangs, but I've got a fantastic team in the foundation.
Yeah.
We help any adult survivor of any kind of sexual abuse, and this action that we are trying to take is on behalf of every parent, every mother, every child in the country. But it's very relevant as well to this new grooming gang inquiry. I've now had 2 meetings.
I call them rape gang inquiries.
Rape gangs, and
it's the truth, isn't it?
It's the truth. But Anne Longfield, who is meant to be leading this, I've now had 2 meetings. We've took a group of over 26 survivors to meet her, and we're going into a new national inquiry. The question has to be asked, Jeremy, if we had a 7-year national inquiry where the recommendations are sitting on a shelf 10 years after it started, why are we going to put a whole new generation of victims through another 3 years of trauma, reliving their abuse, when those recommendations are not worth the paper that they are written on? So the only way to challenge a government, and they are throwing millions of pounds fighting against us.
I thought they didn't have any money.
Well, they do when it comes to this, and they're saying to us, we don't have any duty to implement
And can I actually jump in? Sorry, Max, because we'll ask you about the deep state in a minute. This government, not just making it all about Starmer because it's the past, but this government is all about human rights. What about the human rights of kids who are abused by people?
Well, they obviously don't care about the human rights of kids because they're hiding behind, you know, paperwork and
Is
delays.
it all technical? It's all technical.
It's not technical. There's no will there to do it.
What do you mean by deep state?
I think we get, I mean, this is me, I'm not a politician, and
You've got a right to an opinion.
I've got an opinion. I think we get a new government, but the people in grey suits who are in the Home Office, who are in the Foreign Office, they don't change. And so they are entrenched.
What are they scared of?
That we've got a problem in our country when we come to grooming gangs. Nobody wants to uncover the reality that one particular section of the Pakistani Muslim community abuse children, and they don't share the same values about child protection as we do. And, you know, politics is wrapped up in this thing.
But that's a fact.
I believe that that's a fact. That's my opinion.
You can have that opinion and say that you believe that. That doesn't...
I do believe it, Jeremy. I've worked
you've seen it.
I've seen it. It's been my life for 30 years. You know, unless we... In a way, unless I win this, unless my charity wins this, what's the last 30 years been for?
Nothing.
And it's the future generations of children, because I won't be here forever. Who's going to pick up where I leave off? I'm building an army, but the governments, successive governments, in my opinion, should hang their heads in shame.
Yeah, agree. What does a win look like, by the way? What does a win look like?
Tomorrow at the High Court, it's we are seeking leave to take the government to a full judicial review.
Yep.
A win is actually either having all these recommendations implemented, or transparency that the government actually don't want to, they don't have to, and then that begs the question, why are we going to have another national inquiry?
Can I ask you something that's probably quite contentious, but I too have an opinion. When we've got this situation going, which you don't need to talk about Iran, and he's accused by Trump of not caring, and he doesn't send the boats, and the French beat us and all that, and yet last night he stood in Westminster Hall, the very hall that Queen Elizabeth laid in state, by the way, and hundreds of thousands of people walked past her, entertained a Muslim community, that's their right, and basically said how proud he was that he hadn't gone in and been part of this bombing because he cares about Muslims. Do you think that our Prime Minister, his thing here is that he plays to a certain part of the electorate? Do you think that's why the policeman said it to me? Do you think that's why Keir Starmer won't do anything about it, because he's terrified of losing that vote?
I do think that's a massive part of it, and I think he's playing to an audience that he needs. But child protection should go above political game playing. And,
of course it should.
You know, he is one person, but remember, Jeremy, when I worked on the Rochdale case, he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, and I resigned primarily because two of the children that I was supporting, that I'd worked with for months and given them my word, one of them had been made pregnant at 13, and as Director of Public Prosecutions, together with the Chief Prosecutor, he signed off that that rapist would not be charged with rape. Jeremy, we
based
had a
on
fetus.
what?
We had a fetus. We had DNA.
What, based on what? What did Starmer base that on?
You have to ask him. But how can you charge a man who got a child pregnant with conspiracy?
Let's just lay it out there, Mags. He let Jimmy Savile off the hook, didn't he? Let's just say what, you know.
It kind of goes beyond one individual.
Of course, but you know, if you're the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Prime Minister, you're up there, aren't you?
He is the top of the Crown Prosecution Service. Decisions on charging lie at his feet. So I have got an extra layer of
cynicism,
contempt, probably, for somebody who's able to do that and turn away from children like that. For me, has got no principles.
Two very quick questions, not my fault, not much time. Is this rape gang scandal the biggest stain on our society ever?
I think it's the biggest shame. Yeah, I do. I've seen it at first hand, and it destroys lives. The abuse destroys lives, but children and survivors recover. When the state lets them down, they do not recover.
Couldn't agree more. The Maggie Oliver Foundation tomorrow taking this government to the High Court. 30-year battle. You're amazing. You said 3.5 years ago that the recommendations, 20 of them, none have been implemented. No. That's what you're fighting for. What can we do? What can people do to help this?
Well, we've had to fund this through 2 private donors, you know, a little charity. So anybody who wants to support a charity, please donate.
I don't usually do this. Go online, the Maggie Oliver Foundation. This is the most amazing charity, and this lady is a lone voice in a sea of complete cover-ups. And you know I have to rush, but love you. And I'm going to go online later and do some sport. I think you're amazing.
Thank you. If anybody wants to come to the High Court tomorrow, please come.
Get your banner and get there for Mags. Listen, great to have you on. Lots of love.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy.
Always a pleasure. Good morning. This is Talk Breakfast.
No doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interests stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous energy policy, preceding this government, frankly, and all the knock-on effects to that for our economy are catastrophic.
Across the UK on DAB+. on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk Breakfast is the home of common sense, and it's the home of alarm clock Brits. Thanks for tuning in. The amazing Maggie Oliver, the whistleblower, the ex-Greater Manchester policewoman who has dedicated her life to doing right by kids who have been victims of the rape grooming gangs in the north of England. Today, actually tomorrow, is at the High Court in London trying to gain a judicial review against the government. I'm going to repeat this because, and I quote, okay, there was a 7-year investigation instigated by the Tories, and after 7 years they came back with 20 recommendations to look after kids, not just kids who are raped, kids who are groomed, kids from, broken homes, all sorts of things. Terrible, terrible, terrible stuff. They have not been implemented yet, either by the Tories or by Labour. And she is a woman who has set up the Maggie Oliver Foundation. And I don't do this, but I will do this. All of her details online, maggieoliverfoundation.com. Go and support it. It's an astonishing show of strength by a woman who, puts us all to shame. Can I also say to Rob from Newcastle in Mucker, who sent a voice note, the quality wasn't good enough to put on. We agree with everything. Re-recorded because it was brilliant. I've got some breaking news, 9:05 on Talk Breakfast. Greek frigates are arriving in Cyprus as we speak after drone strike on the British base at Akrotiri on the island. Live shot there. Greek frigates are arriving in Cyprus after drones strike our British base on the island. This was 48 hours ago. A lone, or maybe 2, drones fired. They landed 800 yards from a compound full of British servicemen, women and their families. Here's the irony, and this is what has driven you nuts today, right? Yesterday, the French had already arrived to protect any French inhabitants in Cyprus. Today, you can see it there, Greek frigates arriving in Cyprus. And where were Britain? I'll tell you where Britain were, hiding behind international law, if you're Starmer, saying, I don't want to get involved. It was only late last night that he dragged his backside to making a decision, and we're sending, and I'm sorry for the word, no, don't. We're sending one frigate called HMS Dragon that'll take 2 or 3 weeks to get there and isn't in the best of health and might break down on the way. This has led many people this morning to say that we're beyond saying this man is incompetent. This is it's treasonable. It's just fundamentally wrong. So angry with the Americans that our Donald, he took to the microphone last night in the Oval Office. This is what he thinks about Britain right now.
But this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? They ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. The UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration is, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK, you have a terrible mayor of London, terrible. He's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back.
Whether or not Keir Starmer wanted or didn't want to be involved initially, the fact that he refused the Americans the use of air bases to fly and deal with this, we're back to those live shots. This is going to blow me off my seat. Right, let me get this right. Greek frigates, as I speak, you can see the pictures live on YouTube. Greek frigates are arriving in Cyprus as we speak after drones struck a British airbase. So the Greeks have arrived, the French got there yesterday, and we're meandering across the water in an old boat because we're worried that international law might say, oh, we shouldn't get involved. I'm sorry, I'm going to, Dan Hodges, shame, traitor, wrong, fundamentally wrong. And last night, for all the people who think, oh, Jez, you got to look at all sides, I did. I had Dame Emily Thornberry on. I've looked at all sides. Yesterday I had what was he, the deputy or the old ambassador to Iran who said, oh, Iran's fine and we should keep our noses out. Well, I think when we're talking about Cyprus, we should get our noses in. But last night, having begrudgingly admitted that he'd send HMS Dragon, what did our leader do? He stood in the very hall where Queen Elizabeth laid in state for a month and addressed several Muslims, hundreds of Muslims who'd arrived, and basically proudly said, we weren't involved. Have a listen and got a round of applause.
But on Iran, I want to make clear the UK was not involved in the offensive strikes of the US and Israel, and that remains the case.
Try saying that to the people in Cyprus or Dubai or the Middle East. Try saying that to our servicemen and women. Laura, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Laura in Wiltshire. Another terrible day. It just gets worse. I'm staggered. I'm really beginning to believe that Starmer is deliberately sabotaging our country. I can't give any other reason for all of the decisions he's making. It's catastrophic and really quite terrifying. He is a malign force. I don't know what we do to get rid of him, but we are in trouble. Anyway, great show.
We go now live to good friend of the show, love having him on, commentator in the Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges, who has been very, very vocal on X. Dan, good morning. I don't want to be accused of saying the wrong thing. Actually, I'm too old to care. Greek frigates, as we speak, are arriving in Cyprus because drones were fired from Iran that landed 800 yards from a British RAF compound. The French, for Christ's sake, and I'm old enough to be able to say this because they were the original fence sitters and can't stop one migrant from coming here, even for 700 million quid. They got there. I don't really care about people's political persuasion. This is nothing short of embarrassing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's worse than embarrassing. I mean, I think it reached the point of a national scandal. I mean, I've been saying this for the last 2 days. No, I think this is something that people are missing in this whole debate about, as you say, the fact that the Greeks have had to deploy their naval assets, the French are having to deploy their naval assets. We're told that they're deploying a carrier to the Mediterranean. And a lot of people have been saying, well, this highlights the fact that that our navy has been hollowed out, and that is obviously the case, and that is demonstrably the case. But there's a more fundamental issue here, which is, as you've reported, I've reported, we've reported, others have reported. We do actually have vessels, and we do actually have a vessel that is sufficiently capable of operating in the Mediterranean and defending Cyprus. Now, as you say, it's going to take a week basically to get down there.
You might like to know some breaking news as you speak, my friend. According to Ship Tracker, which we've just checked, HMS Dragon has not left Portsmouth yet.
Well, exactly. Now, this is a vessel that is supposed to be at 70, although it was in port, it was supposed to be at, my understanding was supposed to be at 72 hours readiness.
Yeah.
Now, we have known for the best part of 2 months that American strikes were coming, were likely, if not inevitable. We've known that if those strikes came, Cyprus would very possibly be a potential target for any Iranian retaliation. We know this because the government literally told us this.
Yep.
And in the days and weeks running up to the strikes, told us that assets were being deployed to Cyprus in a defensive capacity, but these key assets weren't there. And I think the fundamental question that I haven't seen answered is this: people have been pointing about the fact for the first time in God knows how long, we have no Royal Naval assets either in the Mediterranean or the Gulf. The question is, were those assets not deployed purely for operational reasons, or were they not deployed for political reasons?
Well, I'm going to jump in as well. This will help you, because Ian Duncan Smith gave a very interesting statement about this. He, like you, Dan, and I'm completely with you, you pre-position your forces in a position if you were aware of what was happening. And there is no doubt that anybody with a brain cell, right, would be able to work out what has been happening here, that this was a build-up in the Gulf, rather, by the Americans, and we should have done the same. Ian Duncan Smith, and you can respond to this, he says, and I quote, that this government's economic policy, which is to cut for the reasons that we know about, the direct effect on the defence industry has been that these boats haven't been culled, but operationally they have been stalled for a period of time. And that is why, instead of being in the waters defending the people it should be, or ready to do that job, it's back at home in port in Portsmouth, because, and I'm just throwing you something Ian Duncan Smith said earlier, that means it's not doing operational things, and that costs a lot less money. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I've a question for you. Would it be fair to say that our nation's been left exposed?
Well, it's self-evidently has been left exposed. The thing we need to get to the bottom of now is why. I mean, there's a couple of points. I think Ian Duncan Smith may be right. As I've said before when I've been in this programme, however, we can't just lay this at the door of Keir Starmer. He's only been in power 18 months.
Successive governments have destroyed our defence,
exactly,
completely.
The erosion. I suspect that part of this is, obviously, we have seen, over the last couple of years, a huge emphasis on building up capability that can be used for the defence of Ukraine. The Royal Navy may have suffered as a result of that. But as I say, the key point is, however we have been hollowed out militarily, we do actually still have assets. We do actually still spend billions and billions of pounds on defence. We have recently spent huge amounts of money on 2 aircraft carriers, both of which are currently sitting in dock doing sweet FA as Britain, as British territory, British civilians, British military personnel are under direct attack. So, but as I said, the question is, we've seen throughout this conflict, you know, Downing Street came up with this incredible statement yesterday that in response to the Iranian attacks on Akrotiri, the UK would not be attempting to neutralize the launch platforms in Iran or potentially in the Lebanon, because, in the words of Downing Street, the policy of the government was one of de-escalation. Now, you can't de-escalate at a time when the Iranians, and this is a crucial point, it doesn't matter what you think about the initial strikes. I think the initial strikes were wrong. I don't think the Americans have a clear strategy in Iran. I do think the legality of the strikes is questionable. We've all seen in the past, horrifically, what happens when we attempt regime change in the Middle East. But that is a secondary issue. As soon as Iran decided to attack us, we had an obligation to respond to protect our interests and our citizens.
Completely.
It's
exactly, I have to say, I want to just jump in and say, if you are tuning in right now on YouTube, those are live pictures from Limassol in Cyprus, where, unbelievably, Greek frigates are arriving on the island after drone strikes hit a British Air Force base. Our boat that begrudgingly Starmer said he was sending, those are live pictures, HMS Dragon is still stuck in Portsmouth and will take 2 or 3 weeks to get there. Dan Hodges, you are absolutely right. I said at the beginning of the show this morning, I don't... It's not about whether we should have been with America and Israel at the beginning. I have my thoughts, you have your thoughts. This is about a country, an island, Great Britain, had a drone missile fired. I mean, let's forget for a minute NATO, Article 5. I thought everybody was supposed to jump up, but I never thought I would sit on a radio or television programme and say that the French would be there before us, the Greeks were there. That is shameful, and it doesn't matter about your politics. And of course it then begs, and it begs it again and again, Dan. He talks about international... I had Emily Thornberry on, right? And I said, you know, how do you feel? She said, I'm proud. This is what Emily Thornberry said on Talk Breakfast. I am proud, Jeremy, that Keir Starmer is the first Prime Minister since the one, this is how she put it, the one who was in when Vietnam was on, couldn't name him, who said no to the American president. That makes him a great person. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't at all. We can all have our criticisms of Donald Trump, but what Donald Trump said yesterday, both domestically and internationally, is absolutely true. This is a dereliction of duty. Surely, Dan, the first duty of any Prime Minister and government is to protect its people, right?
Well, absolutely, but also, you know, this is the other contradiction. Keir Starmer himself stood up on Saturday and said, as a result of the strikes that were being launched by Iran, which included ballistic missiles and drones, and which were targeting British citizens in the Middle East, this was prior even to the attack on Akrotiri. Keir Starmer specifically said, the only way to properly protect our citizens from those strikes is not for our military to almost act as goalkeepers and just simply try and intercept the missiles once launched and intercept the drones once launched, because that is obviously quite difficult, and in the case of the ballistic missiles, very, very difficult. But that the only way to properly protect British citizens and British interests was to strike those launch platforms at source in Iran, which is why he did his U-turn, and he said, we will now allow the American military to use our bases for those strikes. He called them defensive strikes to protect our citizens. But when asked, fine, we've got the Americans flying missions to protect us, we've got the Israelis flying missions to protect us, will the RAF also be flying missions to protect us? His answer was no. So we're now set aside the legality, because the legality is not an issue anymore. No. He's admitted striking these launch platforms is legal, which is why he's letting the Americans do it. Where is the morality in us saying we are letting the United States and United States pilots and military personnel risk their lives, we are letting Israeli pilots, Israeli personnel risk their lives defending us, But we will not defend ourselves.
My question, I completely with you.
How are we even in this position?
Just from all your experience and all that you've written, and I have to keep repeating this, we've come off that now. We're doing other shots, but I thought we were showing live shots of Limassol. If we go back to that, you'll see, oh, we have got that. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, back to Limassol. If you are tuning in, Greek frigates arriving in Cyprus after that drone strike. I'm talking to Dan Hodges. The French have arrived, the Greeks have arrived. We're nowhere to be seen. HMS Dragon still in Portsmouth, according to Ship Tracker. Can you think, Dan, of any reason, because I've been banging my head for 24 hours, that Starmer, in your words, has either been so late to defend us or just won't? Because I don't know anybody that can't get their head round it. I don't understand. Is it incompetence, international law? He is managing to alienate most of the world, most of the population, most of the journalists, in fact, almost everybody, with an ideology that is baffling.
Well, look, I think there's two things. Firstly, I think we need to be careful. Let's be honest. We need to be careful in terms of what you said about how he's alienating everybody in the population. I think we will see in the days ahead a series of opinion polls. We've already seen a couple.
Yeah.
I think the mood of the British people is, let's stay out of this. This isn't our war. And I think that is the reality. And in relation to the initial strikes, I think Keir Starmer will get significant public support for his stance. But to answer your question more broadly, the reason why it is quite clear to me now, the reason why even after Britain has been struck, he is adopting this sort of the attitude of almost a pacifist in relation to this, is a political one. It is not a coincidence that the current stance and the confusion and the government's current stance has followed the by-election that we saw in Gorton and Denton last week.
Yeah,
it's been an issue for a considerable amount of time, which is that the Labour Party is hemorrhaging votes to its traditional base within the Muslim community. And there is a significant element of Keir Starmer's political strategy, which is trying to shore up his support amongst the Labour Party's traditional Muslim base, of which his response to this crisis is a part, at a minimum, and I suspect.
I have to ask you this. So from what you've said, when, I don't know, was it Trump or somebody else, he's pandering to the Muslim vote, you would agree with that?
Well, Trump was asked that, asked that question, and Trump said he may well be. I wouldn't necessarily phrase it as pandering to the Muslim vote. He, as I say, the way I would phrase it is, he has a strategy of trying to prevent the Muslim vote hemorrhaging to the Green Party.
So he's putting personal and party success in front of national security.
Yes, he's quite clearly putting party politics in front of national security in this issue. There's no other logical or rational explanation for the government stance. As I said, his initial position of not aligning with the United States on the initial strikes is a legitimate position, and a number of previous prime ministers and administrations could have taken a similar stance. But his failure to authorize strikes on Iran at a time when Iran is directly targeting us goes beyond that. And the other thing to remember is, remember what Keir Starmer's diplomatic strategy has been right up until this point. Right up until this point, Keir Starmer's diplomatic strategy has basically been to sycophantically ingratiate himself with Donald Trump and to try and paint himself as the Trump whisperer, the Western leader who knew how to engage with and manipulate Donald Trump. And what we've seen over the past week is that strategy going completely out of the window. And its proximity to what we saw in the Gorton and Denton by-election is quite clearly one of the reasons.
Last question. I love having you on, mate. Great conversation. Should do it over a pint. Judging by what you've said, party politics and me, in front of national interest in terms of humiliation, and I agree with you, the beginning, other prime ministers may have made that decision, but it's afterwards, it's all these things. Do you think he and his government are a national security risk? Seriously?
Well, a self-evidently national security risk. I mean, we've got British territory being attacked. We've got British personnel being attacked. We've got British civilians around the wider Middle East being attacked. We've got British assets around the wider Middle East being attacked. We've got allies being attacked. We've got a major NATO ally being attacked. And the British government, quite self-evidently, is not defending our interests. I mean, there's no debate about this. You started the programme very accurately by pointing out the assets that the British government now acknowledges should have been off Cyprus defending our troops and our base was not there. So by definition, the government has already failed to protect British territory. That's not even a debatable point.
Yeah, it's true. Listen, mate, great to have you on. We so appreciate it. We love having you on every week. Dan Hodges, read him in the Mail on Sunday, in the Mail across the week, commentator. Great to have you on the show. 9:25. We're live across the UK. If you're tuning in via YouTube, you'll see live pictures from Limassol in Cyprus as Greek frigates arrive in Cyprus. Don't forget those drones landing 800 yards from an RAF base in Akrotiri in Cyprus a couple of days ago. The French have sent ships. The Greeks have sent ships. Starmer, who, according to Dan Hodges, I'd love to hear from this, along with his government, is a threat to national security. That's a really big line. Begrudgingly agreed to send HMS Dragon. One ship's a bit old. Now, not being proactive, it wasn't ready, and it hasn't left Portsmouth yet, and it'll take about 3 weeks to get there. That just about sums up the United Kingdom. 0344 499 1000. Dan Hodges said it, and I agree. Keir Starmer and his government are a threat to national security. Wayne, good morning.
Right, Jezza, I've come to the conclusion we live in a simulation, mate. There is no way this is real. Someone is having a laugh with us. We're all going to wake up one day, and we're going to go, God, that was a bit of a weird dream. Because there is no way this PM is real. I mean, he literally says the wrong thing every time. Not once or twice, every time. Every time he opens his mouth, the wrong thing comes out that he should be saying. Mate, it's a computer game. 100%. The worst game ever, but this cannot be real life.
The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place.
Breaking news that Peter Mandelson has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt.
What would Andrew Loney tell them to do?
To come clean, be honest. And if Charles is complicit in this cover-up, which I believe he is, then I think he has to fall on his sword.
When you define sex, gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or woman, what you are physically, not what you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 9:30 still to come. Isabel Oakeshott live from Dubai, and Lord Michael Gove, the former cabinet minister and editor of Spectator, and Samara Gill. Live shots there at Limassol, Cyprus, as the Greek Navy sends frigates to support British people affected by drones being sent from Iran. Starmer, our single boat, HMS Dragon, hasn't left Portsmouth yet. He's just checking international law whether he can go a certain way up the sea, I think, because it might upset somebody. But on a serious note, Dan Hodges said it there. He believes that this government and Starmer, whether you agree with the initial strikes or not, is a threat to national security. Stephen Cornwall, Jeremy Keir Starmer makes Neville Chamberlain look like Rambo. Jez, Starmer is now desperately playing to whoever he thinks he can get a vote off, and after the Greens winning in Gorter and Denton, 30th of May local elections around the corner. If he loses massively there, he will surely be out of a job, and now he's scared of making a war decision in case of upsetting his voter base. But that's the point. You cannot base decisions in leadership about war and stuff like this by saying, ooh, I don't want to upset my voter base, so I won't make a decision. Let's cross back live to Dubai. Our international editor has been braving the elements, trying to deal with the kids and repeatedly giving us great stuff. Isabel Oakeshott, good morning.
Good morning. So much to say this morning.
God.
So much to say.
I've never known anger. I've got to tell you, I've been doing this for a while. I've never known anger from 6 o'clock. There was the Trump speech about, you know, you've taken the great out of Great Britain, you odious little man. He talked about energy and he talked about immigration. And meanwhile, I don't know if you've picked this up, Starmer's response to all of this was to stand in front of a group of Muslims yesterday in the very hall Queen Elizabeth laid in state for a month and say, I wasn't part of the initial strikes at all and I never will be, and they gave him a round of applause. But most of all, Isabel, before I take a breath, live pictures of the Greeks arriving with their frigates in Limassol in Cyprus, and our one stupid ridiculous boat, HMS Dragon, which he only begrudgingly agreed to send late yesterday, hasn't even left friggin' Portsmouth yet.
I mean, we might have to rename it HMS Mouse, maybe, or HMS Minnow. Maybe we rename it HMS Minnow.
Oh.
This is so embarrassing. This man, a prime minister, has done so much damage to the UK on the world stage. And I thoroughly agree with Dan Hodges about him being a threat to national security. I mean, we knew that already because of his handling, his woeful, deplorable handling of the Chagos Islands situation, a crisis completely of his own making. And here's the thing. Most strong leaders embrace a war, not because they want warfare and they want anyone to be harmed in conflict, but because it is an opportunity to show leadership and to reinforce where your country stands on the world stage, to show that you are still a country that matters and that can make a difference for the right reasons. And what do we have? We have a prime minister who is cowering, a prime minister who is cowardly in the face of what he imagines is opposition from Muslim voters in the UK. Well, if there is opposition from Muslim voters in the UK, that tells you about the type of Muslim voters that we have. And I simply don't believe that is representative of most Muslim voters in the UK. They are not as Islamic extremists or apologists for this appalling Iranian regime. They are moderates.
You'll love this. This is brilliant, and I'm so glad you're with me. As we are showing live pictures in Limassol, Cyprus, of the Greek frigates arriving in Cyprus after a British RAF base at Akrotiri was hit by an Iranian drone. We know the French are already there, and as I said, HMS Dragon, the only boat we've got, which isn't ready apparently, is still stuck in Portsmouth. And I'll tell you something, the next caller, Lynn, who's in Gosport, can see HMS Dragon out of a window. Lynn, you're through to myself and Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. Yes, I'm watching everything going on here. We live right on the promenade at Priddy's Hard in Gosport, and they've got a pontoon out there. And last night, about 10 o'clock, we saw the tugs bring this brightly lit ship up, which was, we looked on our SMS thing, and it was Dragon. So we sat there watching it, and it's all moored up now. And there's loads of TV cameras and vans down here. I believe GB News is down here too.
Never heard of
My
it.
husband's just spoken to her. Yep, so no, bright sunshine down here, and it's all go. Crikey.
When you say all go, it hasn't all gone though, has it? Because it's still there. The Greeks have arrived and the French have arrived, but it's apparently going to take a week or two to even bloody well get there. What are they doing? Painting it, filling it full of fuel, making sure international law says they haven't upset the barnacles? Or what's happening?
No, I haven't got a clue actually what they're doing, but they're obviously, usually the ships go on there to load things. Yeah. So, they'll be loading the ammunitions and all the food and everything, I would imagine. I could take the boat out there, I suppose, and ask them.
That would be nice if you could do that. Can I ask you a question? Oh, breaking news. Oh, my God, this is going mad. You've seen the Greek frigates arriving in Cyprus, Isabel and Lynn. Our one's stuck in Gosport. Lynn's got eyes on it. Breaking news, Greek jets have just intercepted a suspect object close to Cyprus. In a minute, we're going to be responsible for our safety purely down to the Greeks. Before you go, Lynn, let me ask you something. Is Keir Starmer a traitor? Is he a threat to national security in your mind?
I'm afraid I think he is, yeah. I've thought of that for quite a long time now, unfortunately. Yes.
Good. Keep an eye on that boat. Get your boat out, get your tender out, go and find it and send us some pictures or a report. The guys will be talking about it all day, OK?
OK. I can also see the aircraft carriers here as well.
Yeah, that's not moving. That's knackered. Thank you so much indeed, Lynn. Isabel, I mean, how... I know. What are you supposed to do?
It's so humiliating. You know, Britannia used to rule the waves.
Yep.
And now it looks as if we're being helped out by other NATO member states who take this stuff more seriously than we do. Interesting, the Greeks are one of the few nations that has for a very long time spent more than the minimum required by NATO on their defence systems. So they've been big spenders on defence, primarily because they've got lots of islands and they've felt quite vulnerable in various ways. Whereas we've sort of just about spent the recommended amount, but the reality speaks for itself, doesn't it? Our aircraft carriers, which we basically mortgage the country up to the hilt to pay for, go absolutely nowhere, don't do an awful lot useful. They do some symbolic kind of trips around. But when it matters, where are our naval assets? Well, we don't have any. And there's one that's just sort of being casually and slowly prepared to chug out into the ocean, by which time probably the drama will all be over.
It's really interesting that Dan Hodges said that he said there will be a poll next week that will show that a majority of Britons perhaps agree with Starmer that going in initially wasn't the right thing. And if I move away from that, that's not, as Dan said, what it's about now. This is about protecting British interests. The first job and rule of any government is to surely protect its country and its people. And all I can see from my little seat in London is Greek boats and French boats protecting British people. And that infuriates me. You've been all over the place, but my father-in-law last night is 80. I've never seen him so angry. Apoplectic. I mean, apoplectic. And for him, the icing on the cake was the fact the French, you can't stop migrants and get 700 million a year for it. They're already out there trying to protect us, for Christ's sake.
Well, you know, people can have their view on whether or not they think that the Iranian regime needs to be toppled. I've been very, very open about my view on that, and I think most of our listeners will agree about the need to get rid of that murderous regime. But they could, if they don't like that idea, maybe they'll be interested by what will happen to the UK and all countries if this goes on too long. And the Straits of Hormuz, through which about 20% of the world's oil goes, and so many other of our goods pass through that narrow stretch of water, which has effectively been closed by the Iranians now, that is going to have the same kind of impact as we felt during COVID on goods and supplies getting into the UK and indeed all around the world. The impact is already pretty clear here in the Middle East. Deliveries of things are taking maybe up to a week, which used to be able to arrive in the space of hours. And we're going to see in due course the impact on petrol pump prices in the UK. At the moment, there is a time lag because the petrol forecourts are selling fuel that they bought at prices before this conflict. Very soon, prices will likely go up. And people are going to start realizing that this is real, folks. This is real. And just because you're not in the Middle East doesn't mean that the UK is not going to be heavily affected by what is going on.
I know you've been in Dubai. You're still there. We know you're safe. I was going to just ask your response. We had an expat at 6:20 who decided to leave England 4.5 years ago, not for wealth, but because she didn't feel safe in London. And I asked her a question, and I said, right now, with what's happening in Dubai, and there are missiles and stuff, and she cut me in and she went, I feel safer in Dubai with missiles firing over my head than I do in Sadiq Khan's London.
Do you know what? That is a prevailing sentiment in Dubai. You know, we are very, very loyal to the place. You know, people move there as a calculation. They don't move there on a whim thinking, oh, it'll just be really nice and sunny and life will be a bit cheaper. It's a massive deal to relocate, to move country. And I don't know anyone that isn't acutely conscious that they moved to the Middle East and there's Iran just over the water. But they do it because they appreciate everything that the UAE has to offer. And you know, I could sum that up in saying, you're not going to get randomly stabbed on the street. No one's going to take your watch. You're not going to come across many of the awful, heinous crimes that take place on a daily basis. I would hazard a guess that more people were injured yesterday in one day alone in the UK than have been injured in this entire conflict in the United Arab Emirates.
Darling, it's great to have you on. Stay safe. Keep us involved. I've got to read a couple of texts. This is brilliant, by the way. And I just like, you know, I always read good or bad out. This one says, I'm not sure I like Jeremy talking down that ship. The sailors on that boat deserve some respect. I have the utmost respect for every single serviceman and woman who ever wrote that text and the boat. I have no respect for a Prime Minister who is so dithering and just incapable that boat is stuck in Portsmouth and I'm playing live pictures of the Greek bloody Navy already arriving. And bear in mind, the French have arrived. Steve Forrest, it's the text of the decade. Morning. HMS Dragon, its feet. Very good. 19 minutes to 10. We're live across the UK. Morning, David.
Hi, Jezza. David from London. Why on earth are we letting 6% of the population of this country drive everything that we do? It's a disgrace. Fed up with it. And this government has got to go.
0344 499 1000. I'm delighted to welcome our next guest. What a morning it's been. I don't think I've ever interviewed him. I might have shared a conversation at the front. The editor of The Spectator, former senior Conservative cabinet member, Lord... what am I supposed to call a lord at 20 to 10 in the morning, Lord Michael Gove? Is it Michael? Is it your lordship? What is it?
Michael.
Michael. How are you, dear? How are you, dear boy? You all right?
I'm very well, Jeremy. Pleasure to talk to you this morning. Pleasure to be on your programme.
No, that's
and pleasure
great.
also to follow the great Isabel Oakeshott.
I did say, and I'll say it to you as well, Michael, I don't think I've ever been more angry or felt more palpable anger from my viewers and listeners as I have this morning. We saw Donald Trump sitting in his office tearing a second one out of Starmer, saying he'd taken the great out of Great Britain. He was no Churchill, and actually giving him a lesson on what he should do about energy prices and immigration. But beyond all of that, these live pictures that we're showing right now, showing the Greek frigates arriving in Limassol, there are millions of utterly embarrassed and mortified Britons this morning at our Prime Minister's inept response, his inability, Michael, to stand and lead when this country needs it. I guess you'd agree with that.
Absolutely. The Prime Minister has deliberately positioned himself. He's nailed his colours firmly to the fence. He's positioned himself in a way that is Keir Starmer all over. He has neither the courage to support the American-Israeli allied attempt to get rid of a murderous regime, nor is he principled enough, as some on the left are, to say, and indeed some on the right, that this is a misconceived venture. Instead, he is embarrassed, and he's also exposing the weakness of Britain on the world stage and also the inadequacy of our armed forces, over whose decline he's continuing to preside.
I mean, I'm with you. I would have preferred it if he'd stood up and said, I want nothing to do with this. But this man, he governs, in my opinion, by trying to be all things to all people, and sadly ends up being absolutely nothing to anybody, because he's not proactive. He's not. It's all reactive. It's all focus group. It's all how do I look? And, of course, the big criticism, Michael, without wanting to say the wrong thing, is on the back of Gorton and Denton, he is terrified by the split on the left, the fact that the Greens have come from nowhere, the fact that there was sectarian voting there. It is an absolute fact. I mean, at the moment last night when Donald Trump's in the White House saying, you know, you need to do this, that and the other, when our boats are stuck in Portsmouth and the French and the Greek are on the way, when there are British interests at heart, he stood in front of a Muslim federation of people inside Westminster Hall where the Queen died, laid in state, and sort of proudly announced we're not part of it and got a round of applause. He's not a leader, is he?
No, I think it's perfectly legitimate for the Prime Minister during Ramadan to talk to a Muslim audience in the House of Commons. Absolutely. But it's coat trailing, to use an old-fashioned word, to say we had nothing to do with the conflict and to, as he did, to expect applause. What he was basically saying is, I understand your political views based on your religious identity, and I'm truckling to you. I'm appeasing you. I don't think that is the position of a genuine leader. And as you quite rightly point out, we have British sovereign bases in Cyprus that have been attacked. We knew from the moment that Iran was going to be attacked in this way that British lives and British interests were at stake. And the Prime Minister, instead of saying it's absolutely vital that we join our two allies in dealing with a state sponsor of terrorism, instead sought refuge behind all sorts of legal equivocation. Kemi Badenoch has said he's a lawyer, not a leader. This week has reminded us how right she was.
Yeah, and also lots of people saying this morning, Michael, love your take on this. You know, part of being a leader is you pre-position. If you're protecting, because the first rule of government is to protect your people and to protect your country. He knew the build-up in the Gulf of the American forces, even my daughter who's 2 knew that was happening. He could have been more proactive in making sure that our forces were there in readiness if something happened. But here's what was said to me by Sir Ian Duncan Smith earlier, and I've got to say everybody's agreed with it. He said the reason that our ships are not out doing what they should be doing is because of the government's economic policy, and operationally it costs a lot more for them to be there than to be stuck redundant in Portsmouth. Is that true? You've been in government.
Yes, it is. So this government is spending more on welfare than on warfare. None of us want to go to war, but actually the French president put it right 2 days ago when he said that in order to be safe, you need to be feared. In order to be feared, you need to be strong. And in a sentence, he summed up what a foreign policy for a country like Britain should be and exactly what is wrong with our foreign policy. And again, the Navy, traditionally the strongest arm of Britain's defence, is only capable of operating at the admittedly diminished level that it is at the moment on the basis that it's not just regular sailors, but also reserve sailors who man our ships. We simply don't have the people, and we don't have the ships themselves in order to be able to project force in the way that we might. The French have sent an aircraft carrier to the Mediterranean. We're sending one destroyer. And as your listener pointed out earlier, that destroyer appears still to be in port at the moment and will take a week to reach this relevant combat zone.
This isn't meant to be anything other than honest, because you said our wrongly diminished armed forces. One of my bugbears, and I aim this at Tory governments going back.
No, quite right. I know what you're going to say.
Well, I just think it's a disgrace to have always seen cutting defence as the easy option. You were in government, and you've always you put your hands in the air. Do you think we got that wrong?
Yes, I think we did, and I think that actually the situation is worse than many people might think, because overall, when ministers talk about our defences, they say, you know, we meet the NATO 2.5% target. That's only because we include our independent nuclear deterrent. Now, that's a good thing, but there are lots of other NATO countries that don't have a nuclear deterrent. Strip the nuclear deterrent out of it, and we're at the bottom of the league. We're the Burnley, not the Arsenal of NATO powers. And that is a deliberate consequence of people believing that we could either hide behind the American umbrella or spend money on welfare and other luxury goods. It has been a problem for some time. To his credit, to their credit, Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt and Ben Wallace sought to increase defence spending in the final couple of years.
The problem was, but it was only about 3 weeks before the election. He said 3%.
There was more before that, but it wasn't enough. You're right.
I just think overall, and of course that was why when Trump came to power and everybody was appalled when he said, well, you know what, NATO, I've been putting in far more than all of you lot and providing more cover. I remember thinking there's nothing wrong with him saying that, because if you want the support of the Americans, that's a couple of things I wanted to ask you. Does this ruin the special relationship, or will it go on beyond Starmer and Trump?
It will go on because it exists at a deeper level. Where British and American soldiers, sailors and airmen work together. British and American security and intelligence experts work together, come what may. There is, I'm sure your viewers and listeners know, something called the Five Eyes Network: Britain, America, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, that we share secrets and we act as allies. That will endure. But there will have been many, many people who are no fans of Trump who will have been nodding their heads when Trump pointed out the two big problems that Britain has when it comes to making sure that we're ready to defend ourselves. Sky-high energy prices, while oil and gas resources go unexploited in the North Sea, and also a failure to police our own borders when it comes to illegal migration.
Couldn't agree more. Not trying to put words in your mouth, you're too experienced for that, but do you believe that Starmer's putting party politics above national security?
Yes, I think he is now. I think he came to power, to be fair to him, believing in his own words that he should put country before party. But I now fear that some of the decisions that he has made, sacking actually one or two good people who worked for him, including his cabinet secretary, in order to strengthen his position, and then trying to stave off the threat from the Greens by, as you mentioned earlier, dabbling his toe in sectarian waters. I do worry that he is now putting party politics ahead of the national interest.
Listen, it's an absolute pleasure. The Spectator is an amazing thing to do, but we love having you on, and please do come again. Lord Michael Gove on Talk Breakfast. What is it, 9 minutes to 10?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just to follow up that Michael Gove call, the live pictures you were watching of Greek frigates arriving in Limassol in Cyprus. Dear Jeremy, I live in Larnaca, but I watched your show. I don't know if it's been heard yet in the UK, but about an hour ago, a Greek F-16 bomber brought down a drone heading for Akrotiri again. It's the third time something like this has happened. Thank God for Greece and France sending boats and F-16s for help, because we're a small island. One drone goes into the island and does serious damage. We are scared. Interesting there. We're going to cross to Reform, I think, is it at Reform HQ in London, where Samara Gill joins us ahead of a, I only say Greek, Reform press conference. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm at Millbank at the Reform HQ. I've got Layla Cunningham behind me. I also saw Farage on the way in. That's Mr. Nigel Farage to many of you. And it seems like there's something bubbling away. I don't know what they're going to announce.
Well, tomorrow, Layla...
There was also whispers on...
Yeah, there are whispers.
Yeah.
Layla's going to be on the show tomorrow, creatively, brilliantly called Call Cunningham.
Yes.
We've got Ring Rob. There are rumours with you today there could be a Labour defector. There might be other shadow cabinet positions. We don't know. We never do with Nigel.
It could be totally blockbuster or it could be a bore fest, but it's never really a bore fest over at Reform HQ. It's always very camp with, you know, fireworks metaphorically and literally a lot of the time. So let's see. And you're right, if you've got any questions from today's presser, then you'll have Layla on your show tomorrow to answer them all. And I really would encourage the audience to get involved, as they always do. But yeah, I think Suella Braverman might be here as well. That was mentioned on Monday. She might be outlining education reforms. So it's really interesting to see what they've got in store for the British people, and it's up to the audience to decide whether they like it or not.
I think you'll find as well with Reform, they are the official opposition in the United Kingdom. I think these regular, I don't know, or maybe I do, but I think these regular press conferences about different areas of policy are to explain to people that they're not just, oh, we're Reform, vote for us. There is depth to what they're trying to do, and of course they're preparing in their mind for government. But yeah, get your questions into Nigel and Layla. You do that for us. Are you on the show tomorrow? Are you going to come in tomorrow morning? Where have you been? I've been here since 4 again.
I'll potentially come in. It depends, Jeremy. It depends. What are you offering? Are you offering any food? I'll take bribes at this point.
Yeah, we'll get you some food. We'll get you a bacon sandwich tomorrow. Anyway, you watch that and I will explain to people. Thank you. Tell Layla to not be late. Layla Cunningham on this show tomorrow. Robert Jenrick has Ring Rob. If David Cameron had been on, it would have been Dial Dave. Layla Cunningham's coming on, the mayoral candidate for Reform for London. It will be called Cunningham. It's almost 10 o'clock. Alex Phillips 4. Julia Hartley-Brewer, Ian Collins, the Housewife's Choice from 1 o'clock this afternoon. And Kev O'Sullivan sounding great on Drive. If you're just tuning in live, pictures there of Limassol in Cyprus as Greek frigates arrive to the island along with a French aircraft carrier to support Brits who've been targeted by a drone missile fired by Iran. This is not against HMS Dragon, your feet. The only boat we're sending is stuck back in Portsmouth being made ready. I've had copious people, Michael Gove, I've had Dan Hodges, I've had Nadeem Zahawi, I've had Ian Duncan Smith, who all say that the Prime Minister of our country is a disgrace and he has put party politics ahead of national security. That's where we finish breakfast today. We're back tomorrow, nice and early at your place from 6. Keep your calls coming for Alex Phillips, 0344 499 1000 and your text to 87222. That's another one consigned to the dustbin of broadcasting history. See you tomorrow.
no doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interests stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous